About a year ago, I set out on one of the greatest challenges of my lifetime. I beat Plants vs Zombies only using nuts. It was an extremely difficult endeavour, taking over 6 months to complete. But there was one common complaint that I received through the journey that really bothered me. Some people were expecting me to beat the game only using walnuts, like the regular guys. They thought I was going to hold back zombies using walls and stalls to finish each level without ever actually killing a zombie. I was told time and time again that using the peanut and exploder nut was cheating. At the time, I found this a bit insulting. The nuts only challenge was extremely difficult, yet I was expected to handicap myself further. But something about that idea stuck with me. Can you beat Plants vs Zombies without ever killing a zombie? Let's lay down the rules. Firstly, and most importantly, I cannot under any circumstances kill a zombie. I cannot transmute a zombie, I cannot disappear a zombie, and I most certainly cannot hypnotize a zombie. This naturally raises the question, how can you possibly beat a level? Well, just like a sunburnt stepdad 2 stellars deep asking himself what he should do with his sunny Saturday afternoon, the answer is obviously lawnmower. I didn't put the lawnmowers there, and I certainly didn't make the zombies walk into them. That's not murder, that's chicanery. No power-ups or purchased plant food is a given, but this next rule is very important. I can use any plant in the game, no limits whatsoever. I'm free to take any plant no matter how broken it is. That said, 99% of them are practically useless in a challenge like this, but I'm just a bit bored of challenges that are only using X plant, you know? And that's about it. Make sure you subscribe to stick around for the rest of this challenge, and without further ado, it's time to start the first ever Plant vs Zombies pacifist run. Thank you all for joining me for this. The very first day of this ambitious challenge goes as easy as you expect. Just a handful of nuts wearing down what little teeth these tutorial zombies have left. Stalling out the first couple of levels with just the walnut is exactly how the nut challenge went, which is a cool little mirror. I forgot that the lawnmowers respawn in these early stages, so we could have skipped them all. But for the sake of completionism, which is definitely a real word, I want to do all these levels. Day 2 is the power up tutorial, so naturally we skip. Day 3 forces us into using a cabbage pult, which last time around I made a big deal about making an exception to the rule, but it only just dawned on me that I can just scoop these up and it's a complete non-problem. Once more, we just spam these regular brown boys, which, wow, I'll never be calling them that again. A strategy that I'll be enjoying for the 3 minutes it'll be viable. Day 4 is a conveyor belt level, the first of many. I won't be complaining about them as much this time round. Not because I became a better rater and realised it's not actually that interesting to listen to someone cry about every third level, but because this time round I stole another YouTuber's account that had all plants unlocked, but for the life of me, I can't remember whose account this is. Oops. Day 5 doesn't let you pick your plants, but it did give us a walnut, so we had to give it a try. I got surprisingly close on this one. The walnuts weren't enough on their own, but using sunflowers and unarmed potato mines, I was able to buy a little extra time along the way. Unfortunately, we're introduced here to our first threat of the challenge, the torch zombie, and he comes just before the last wave, meaning it's impossible to stall him out. That said, lawnmowers are still respawning, so I win anyway. We'll chop this one up to divine intervention. Day 6 is another skip'ems, there's quite a few of these early on. Day 7 and I'm bored of wall stall already. There's so many ways to stall out a game of Plants vs Zombies, and we have like 2 worlds to go before half of them don't work, so I want to experiment a little bit. I call this little maneuver the suck and blow. We start out with some garlic in the corners of the map to create a bit of a funnel. Once the slowest breed of zombies known to man makes it further down the lane, we slap down a sweet potato, sucking them all into the centre of the field. Now for one of the most satisfying instant use plants in the entire game, the hurricane, to blow all the zombies back to the front of the line, hence the suck and blow. This really is a fun strategy that sets up some of the most satisfying lawnmower action I've ever seen. It's really effective as well, as long as there's 0 zombies on screen that can instant kill a garlic, so it's awful, but pretty cool. Day 8 and I thought a little too far out of the box. I thought maybe a mixture of the sap fling and the spring bean would work well enough, but man, the spring bean sucks. I didn't realise it only knocks a single zombie back a single space. What a waste. Desperate to make this strat try and work, I bring along the containment to boost it, and it still sucks. It knocks them back further, but still only 1 zombie, and it still falls asleep. What a waste of a plan. Not wanting to waste any more time on this already time-consuming challenge, I elected to erect a girthy wall of nuts, which did the job very well. This level introduced a tombstone zombie, which I never really considered an issue, but it does take up a lot of space, which we really need to place nuts down. If it ever becomes too big of a threat, however, I can just bring some gravebusters. Day 9 I take down the exact same way, but regrettably I can already feel the firm grasp on these levels slipping. The zombies are stacking up much faster already. It's not a problem yet, but I fear that spamming walnuts won't last much longer. Day 10 goes exactly the same, but I vow to hold the board even longer. Day 11 doesn't let you pick your plants, but it did give us a walnut, so I gave it a mighty good go. Not even close. For day 12, I was looking at what options I had at my expense. I have a couple power combos to test out when it gets a bit more difficult, but I'd completely forgot about the solar tomato. I find sun collection a bit tedious on an emulator, so this could be a really good alternative to sunflowers. I also bought double hurricanes this level, but I was having so much fun just spamming the tomato that I didn't even use them till the very end. This will be an amazing addition to the toolbox. That said, it's very slow on sun generation, extremely powerful late game, but we'll need some sunflowers to help early on. Day 13 was a complete nothing burger. In my last challenge, when I felt like levels were getting a bit dull, I'd give you guys some nut facts, but I have a feeling that random facts about famous pacifists won't be as interesting, so for this challenge we have a new gimmick. Once per world, on a level that I consider to be the dullest, I'm going to let the level play out in the background while I present you a short PowerPoint presentation on something random that I'm interested in that week. And for our very first micro presentation, I present to you the worst combination of food I have ever eaten. Now for context, I was very ill at the time and really didn't want to cook. In fact, I hadn't eaten at this point for about 2 days and I had barely left my bed. And this all took place about 2 months ago. And for the record, this illness probably wouldn't even count as a flu, it was just a bad cold and I'm really pathetic. Now, the combo of food in question is a Rustler's barbecue rib sandwich. This was around the time that the McRib was coming to the UK, and I was unreasonably excited for that because I used to love the McRib episode of The Simpsons. I had a zero sugar regular monster, something I would never drink, but they didn't have my usual drinks in the meal deal section, and 4 entire mint chocolate ice cream magnums. Now the price of such a fiendish combination of food was uncontrollable projectile vomit. I have not vomited in years and I hate it. But it was an interesting experience to be fair. Vomiting always sucks no matter what. But it did just taste like mint ice cream and Monster, not the end of the world. But when that Rustlers came up, that was hell. I promptly passed out on my bed and slept for an entire day. This concludes my first mini presentation. Day 14 was drastically harder than every level so far, so much so that it came down to the wire. I wasn't sure if the zombies were just coming so fast I couldn't set up a good defense, or maybe they were coming in such numbers that I couldn't hold them back anymore. Then I realized I forgot to bring the primal walnut and it made sense. I had a lot more fun though because I didn't bring the walnut, so I think for the time being I'll be skipping out on him. Also, somehow in this level a zombie survived the lawnmower. That's really annoying. I had to restart this level because of a minuscule bug. But these levels take like 15 to 20 minutes a piece because of this stupid stalling strategy. Day 15 and damn, I had not considered this objective yet. It's fine for now, as sweet potatoes can just maneuver zombies around the sunflowers, but what are we going to do if there's a full row of plants to protect? I think I'm going to need the community to band together and figure out a solution for this one, because I can't think of any way to get zombies past a full row of plants. If you can think of any way whatsoever, leave it in the comments. Day 16 is the return of the torch zombie. A fella that's easy enough to deal with now, but it does make me miss when instant kill zombies had counterplay. Like, the torch zombie is a really well designed zombie when you think about it. He instantly kills anything he touches, but his fire can be extinguished. I really miss that game's design, that's awesome. I'm going to keep spamming walnuts while I can because it won't be possible for much longer. Also, since I barely used the tall nut in the nut challenge, I never really got to see how he looked as he degraded. He looks horrible, dude. This is some serious meth head shit. Poor guy. Day 17 limits us to never having more than 14 plants. That means that nut stall isn't really an option, but the old suck and blow works a charm. I was starting to wonder why this isn't a meta option, like it feels almost unfair. You can just infinitely loop this combo. But then a single torch zombie politely reminded me why garlics are useless past like the very first world. Day 18 is our first perennial defense levels, which historically have been my favorites. But for this challenge, I think they're going to be extremely difficult. Luckily the first one gives us a lot of sun, so I can just fill the screen with walnuts. And on the first attempt, it was so close, but one lane has a bunch of tombstones, meaning it just has less walnuts to defend it, and it fell just before the final wave. I run it back and have the genius idea to bring the Tomb Buster, but weirdly that's barred from this level, which is really frustrating. I decided to spam primal walnuts instead, but weirdly this did even worse. I tried a mix of walnuts and tall nuts, but again it just didn't perform as well. In a stroke of genius, I remembered that instant use plants aren't banned in this level, so the suck and blow is an option here. But with limited sun it will be a real challenge. One thing I forgot to mention with this strategy is how inconsistent the hurricane is. Sometimes its blow effect lasts much longer than you'd expect, and it causes random zombies to unexpectedly moonwalk backwards sometimes. It will freeze random zombies in other lanes sometimes, I'm really not sure how that works. Using the suck and blow method, we clutch up the level with only 50 sun to spare. Day 19 is a double challenge of things I don't really care about. I got bored of my current stalling strats and made one of the most disgusting combos ever. A single gum nut and nothing else. Like, single gum nut was enough to stall out this entire level. I did spam it with power at least, but still, a single gum nut stalled out this entire level. Ridiculous. Day 20 is an even more elaborate sunflower protection level. Luckily, we can still maneuver zombies around with garlics and sweet potatoes. I love this challenge already, as it's really cool that we found a super vital use for these otherwise Z-tier plants. The Hurricane's funkiness hit extra hard in this level. At one point, a torch zombie almost singed a sweet potato but got chilled by a phantom breeze. And I even weirdly got some zombies stuck between rows, and because of that, they dodged the Hurricane. I also unintentionally made a willy out of walnuts. On day 21, I went for the trail mix method. That's a couple of every nuts. I made a really costly mistake here, however. I didn't bring an ice plant to chill out the torch zombie. The torch zombie comes just before the last wave, and he wiped out a lawnmower, losing me the level. This would normally be a minor mistake, not worth talking about, but this cost me like half an hour. That is the major downside of this strategy. It is just so time consuming. Day 22, and I got way too comfortable. I thought I could get away with the solar tomato as my sun's soul generator. I couldn't. On the run back, using a much better sun generator, I still couldn't do it. There's a lot more zombies this time round, and the nuts just can't hold off. The suck and blow did just fine, but even then it was close, and I almost got baited into letting a mower rip, thinking it was the end of the stage. I would have cried if I had to redo this one all over again. For day 23, I self-inflicted upon myself a little challenge, only using the brown nuts, as in only the 2 OG ones. This one got really close, but it was actually the regular sunflowers that gave in on this level. They just couldn't produce enough sun. Upon flicking through the seed catalog, I stumbled across a new MVP, Stallia. Like, I knew the plant existed, I just didn't think it would be too helpful. But what I was criminally undervaluing was how much she reduced the eating speed. It basically doubles the effectiveness of nuts for a short while. I've also been neglecting how strong the Hurricane is outside of the suck and blow. He practically resets a row that's cracked through a line of nuts. And it's even better for pushing back zombies that appear halfway through the map. Its recharge is insanely short, but that's just premium pretty privilege. On the run back of our new MVPs, this level goes down. Day 24 is the last day of Egypt we can do this challenge, and it's a plan your defense stage. The iceberg lettuce is given to you in this level despite normally being banned, but I didn't realise this and decided to bring the winter mint as a sort of teaser for things to come. Turns out the winter mint's freeze effect is kind of bad. It freezes so briefly that it doesn't really stall the level out at all. The first attempt of unfeeling blinking walls didn't even come close. Attempt 2, however, was one of the tightest levels I've ever completed. We attempt the suck and blow, but it's extremely evident very quickly we do not have enough sun to loop Hurricanes much. And there are so many more zombies here than before. Each sweet potato barely lasts a second before being eaten. Not only that, but there's a ton of torch zombies, which means I need to use the Hurricanes proactively in order to freeze the torch zombies. It comes down to the last wave and I'm all out of sun. The sweet potatoes just held long enough, but there's a torch zombie who singed every single garlic in his lane just before the last lane. He was about to end the run by triggering a lawnmower, but I managed to freeze him, lasting just long enough until the last wave. All is well, until a zombie blows into the one mowerless lane after the final wave. I was devastated as I'm like half an hour into this level at this point, when I managed to scoop up the very last potato milliseconds before it died, which gives me just enough sun to buy a garlic, which moves the sneaky little ne'er-do-well into a lane with a lawnmower intact. Not to sound too boastful, but I think this might have been the greatest play anyone's ever made in the history of this game.
I want everything about me ship out the tavern. I'll send the Navy, I'll send in the Kraken, I'll send everything in me power. Just get them out the tavern.
So, a bit of an unexpected development in the pacifist challenge. I think Pirate Seas might be the hardest world of the entire challenge. In fact, it's so difficult that as of writing this intro, I've had to take a break. I'm actually stuck on this world. This never happened in the Nut Challenge, nothing even close. I'll explain why this world is so uniquely difficult for this challenge as we progress, but before we get into the next world, I need to make some adjustments to the rules, because I'll be honest, I really half-assed them. Firstly, I forgot to mention that I can't manually send the lawnmower. I know the aim of the game is to kill all the zombies with lawnmowers, but if I set one off myself, that's no different to just using a jalapeno. Not very peaceful. Secondly, in my example of things I considered unpeaceful, I used the Hypno Shroom, but many of you rightly pointed out this doesn't hurt or even impede the zombie at all. And you're absolutely correct, that is a great point. But what do you think happens when the zombie who I've just influenced turns around and eats another zombie? The Hypno Shroom is still banned. No clue how I forgot to mention this one, but once again, there is no leveling plants in this challenge. Yes, I know the sunflower is level 2, but again, this isn't my account, and a level 2 sunflower is still weaker than every other sun generator I could possibly use. I promise you it makes no difference. I am allowed to damage zombies, just not kill them. This actually is very important and comes up quite often. Finally, and most importantly, due to this challenge being a bit more loose than usual, only using X plant, it's really important that we adhere to the spirit of the challenge more than the rules of the challenge. I'll explain it as it comes up, but this one's really important. Right, I think that's everything this time. Without further ado, let's begin the most unassuming nightmare I've ever played. Day 1 is business as usual. A year ago in my last challenge, I mentioned that Pirate Seas has the most nothing gimmick in the entire game. Just a couple of rows each level has less zombies than normal. Well, that statement will be my undoing, as this world gimmick is tailor-made to ruin this challenge. Again, I'll explain as it comes up, but I just want you to know that I might be the only person in history reduced to an angry moulding mess by the Pirate Seas plank mechanic. Day 2 and the world has wasted no time showing us our first major hurdle, the seagull zombie. This doesn't look like such a challenge at first, a flying zombie that can't even fly over walls. But it does rob us of one of our absolute all-star plants, the hurricane. And here's our first example of what I meant when I said we need to adhere to the spirit of the challenge. When I played through this world on stream, the Twitch chat unanimously agreed that sending flying zombies off the stage is not killing them. There's no indication that they're damaged or hurt, and you see the bird fly away peacefully. But the issue of this is that it handles a difficult zombie. My goal for this challenge is to push the limits of the defensive plants, because they're just my favourite ones to use. And blowing away difficult zombies just isn't doing that to me. With all that said, however, the hurricane will blow regular zombies off the planks, killing them, so it's just not a good option to use anyway. So this was a bit of a pointless tangent, but I just wanted to explain my admittedly kind of vague rule. Anyway, moral of the story is day 2 was easy, and the powerful suck and blow strategy is pretty much off the table for this world. Day 3 and just using walnuts is already struggling. I have to back them up with the gum nut. Also, a lot of zombies off themselves in this world, either by firing themselves out of a cannon or just falling into the water. And regrettably, there's no plant I can use to force them to make better life choices. Day 4 and I failed already. This level lays on zombies really heavy for such an early day. But I mostly failed this one because I just returned to live streaming after like a year off and I wasn't able to play and read chat very well. Fortunately, there's no seagulls here, so the hurricanes were able to carry this one. Day 5 and I take the opportunity to use the suck and blow for a free win while there's no bird zombies. Except there was bird zombies and I'm just a bit slow. Since I can't use my favourite strategy, I decided to spend a bit of time in the workshop cooking up my own devious strategy. See, I like the suck and blow a lot, but people have been funneling garlic since the dawn of the franchise, so I want to do something a bit more me. And after spending way too long deliberating over every niche and weird plant, I stumbled across something big. Something that might just change the meta of this game forever. I call it Walnut Stall, but way worse. Let me break it down for you. It's a lot like Walnut Stall, but instead of building a wide board of cheap extendable stallers, we build one tall line of kind of expensive and much worse at stalling stallers. The core of this strategy is one of my absolute favourite plants, the aloe. This little cute guy is awful. It extends the durability of walnut by like 5% at a push, and at the low cost of being 25% more expensive than just using another walnut. Putting pumpkins on top of these walnuts is also really pointless. It buys time for the walnut to just sit around and do nothing. This full setup fails to hold back any more than 2 zombies, and as a result, it didn't work. But I do feel like there's something here, it's just waiting to be broken. I will be returning to this strategy. I switched back to using the trail mix method, but this level is just too hard for using any nut that isn't exactly the primal walnut. So after switching up again to pure primal walnut spam and only an hour of attempts, we beat the notoriously difficult Day 5 of Pirate Seas. This challenge is so doomed. Day 6 marked the very last of my sanity withering away. Just listen to my incoherent ramblings and tell me this is what an able-minded, sane individual sounds like. I try not to discriminate against crackheads because I'm just not one to blame them for anything. Like, the UK is absolutely fucked. Our government does nothing to help them, right? I sympathize with them. Like, I promise you, I'm not someone to get pissed off at like crackheads or homeless people for just like lounging around the city, right? Like, they've got nothing to do. I don't blame them for anything. Like, it's the government's fault. I wish they would stop stealing my post though. You know, that one maybe is on them a little bit. Like, I wish they would stop stealing my Yu-Gi-Oh cards out of the post. Like, what? They're not going to be playing Yu-Gi-Oh anytime soon. I'm sure. I can't imagine drug dealers take Yu-Gi-Oh cards in exchange for crack. I wish they would stop stealing my post. After 40 minutes of attempts, someone pointed out that with most of the zombies funneled into 2 to 3 lanes, the solo tomato is huge value here. And honestly, this might have saved the entire run. It still took a couple more attempts after switching to the tomato, but we eventually got it done. Day 7 is the first time we're seeing the single biggest threat to this challenge yet, the barrel roller zombie. One of the cool things about this challenge is how it flips up the status quo of what's difficult in the game. I'm sure when I called this guy the biggest threat yet, a lot of you rolled your eyes and thought something to the effect of, the barrel roller's tough, sure, but he's nowhere near as bad as some of the later instant kill zombies. And to that I say, you are absolutely wrong. This zombie is a nightmare. See, his ability to flatten out nuts is annoying, but that's not the main problem here. If you move a barrel roller at all, either blowing him away or knocking him up or teleporting him through time and space, he gets disconnected from his barrel. And when that happens, imps pop out of either side, and more often than not, those imps will end up drowning to death. And it is my divine duty to safeguard these zombies, so it's my prerogative to make sure that doesn't happen. Luckily, the gum nut does hold them down, so day 7 wasn't too challenging, until I blew away a flying zombie 10 seconds before the end of the stage. I wasn't even aware that the seagulls can spawn on land, so that's really annoying. Up till this point, I'd been begging the game to give me a gimmick level so I could have a bit of a mental breather, but I was not prepared for this one. I generally got so worked up thinking of a solution just to load into it, and it's a pre-selected plant stage. Disaster avoided. That's a future Shagmore problem. Okay, I think this might be the best setup in the history of the franchise. Day 9 is one of them weird levels halfway through a world where they majorly bring down the caliber of zombie, so there's no birds. I decided to use the suck and blow just as a bit of relief, but I failed to realize that due to the weird setup of this level, all the planks are at the top. So instead of restarting and picking a different team, I created this masterpiece. I call it the Garlic Casino. You see, when a zombie bites a garlic, it will randomly go up or down. That's why I always leave them in the corners so you can force them a certain way. But with this setup, I am fully reliant on RNG. This led to some incredibly nail-biting and genuinely super funny moments, like when these two did a little tango, or when this guy made it to the very end of the garlic rows. I think this game could do with more funny random mechanics. Day 10, and I think it's time for another quirked up strategy. I call this one the Blessed Machine. It involves spamming infinites and power lilies to hold all 5 lanes at once. It's a cool idea that keeps flying zombies in line with other zombies, which has been a big issue so far. It really needs a way to reset zombies to the start, which unfortunately doesn't work in this world. But I think this could be a really cool way to deal with another challenge ender that I'm anticipating very soon. I decided to switch up to double solar tomato, which, man, this might actually be really broken. You could beat the entire game pretty easily with this strategy, if every world had 90% of zombies come in 2 lanes. That said, this level still took like 40 minutes to finish because the imp cannons lay on damage in a way that's really hard to deal with. Day 11 was the first level in so long which I took down first try, but there's still a couple important things to note here. Firstly, one of the major challenges in the pacifist run is that since we never kill any zombies, we never have any plant food. Because of this, the power lily is a powerhouse, and you'll be seeing her in most of these levels. Secondly, another staple that I picked up from here onwards is the reserve garlic. I've had to redo so many attempts where victory is narrowly stolen away from me by a single zombie that avoided the lawnmower. So by bringing in emergency garlic, I can move it over to a lane with a mower intact. Finally, and most pressingly, the game is really starting to struggle with the amount of zombies on screen. Like, it can handle these zombies in the 10s right now. But when you start to apply visual effects like the solar tomatoes glow and the Stolia's stank, it gets really laggy. This is really bad, as later worlds have magnitudes more zombies, and there's a real possibility that the game won't be able to handle this many. Day 12 is the legendary coconut cannon. God, I miss him. It feels so weird to describe Pirate Seas as such a difficult world, but here it comes again, the Captain Pirate. This guy might be the worst instant kill zombie in the entire game to deal with. What do the wizard, octopus, and every iteration of the torch zombie have in common? They all submit to the overwhelming might of the pink goo. Those zombies are all challenge-ending threats that can easily be dealt with by gum nuts and other suppressing plants. The captain, however, he will continue to steal away plants while being gummed. This is just a prediction, but I think this is now the point where Walnut Stall has been power crept out of the game. It's basically impossible to maintain a war with the captain about, so I really need to rely on instant use stalling plants. Luckily, day 13, where he's introduced, the game slows down a lot so you can get used to him, so this one wasn't too hard. This video has been way longer than usual due to the unique difficulty of this world, and it's about to get a lot worse. Buckle in for day 14 of Pirate Seas. This is a plan your defense stage. Off the bat, these levels are very challenging for a pacifist, but given how miserable this world has been, I decided to respect my own time by cutting the cute strategies and jumping straight to the deep end. So I brought out a plant that I was planning to save till the very hardest levels in the game. So it's time to unleash possibly the most broken plant in the entire game. If you thought that abusing Power Lily was too much, let me introduce you to 36 Power Lilies in one, otherwise known as the Reinforcement. This plant effectively triples the defensive power of our army, all for the low cost of literally nothing. With this uber powerful god plant, we're easily able to get absolutely thrashed. Turns out the Reinforcement's useless here. Not only do zombies just waltz through the Iron Maiden walnuts all the same, but the reinforcement causes imps to launch into the seas, so it's actually worse than nothing. Great. Time for a different approach. Seeing as this level is riddled with barrels and captains, Gumnut will need to carry this. We get a lot of sun in this level, so I get a bit of a eureka moment. I used tile turnips to multiply the power of our limited plant food. This was such a cool idea that worked better than you'd expect. The issue was actually overkill. Half of the plant food would just fall off the map due to not having targets, so the tile turnips just aren't needed, and due to the overinvestment in tile turnips, it didn't hold very long. At this point, I decided it's time to start using more of the power plants I've been holding back on. The Boing Setter is a plant I'm surprised no one's commented on yet, because this is a plant that I think will end up being a major player in the later worlds. I'm backing this plant up with the mediocre but free Ice Mint, and at which point we might as well bring the Ice Bloom. This setup, in my opinion, is the highest ceiling of stalling in the game possible, so it should have no problem in the second world of the game. No, actually that makes sense, that's intuitive. That's actually really cool. I need to break this level down more to possibly find a way to beat it. As we already know, instant use plants here are a must, as the captain will just steal anything permanent away. But these instant use plants don't stop the seagulls, so these lanes will still need to be reinforced. It's pricey, but it's necessary. Possibly the biggest innovation that Twitch chat suggested was using the spearmint. If we use it at the very start of the level, we can dig up all the spike rocks and net ourselves a bit of sun. Nothing major, but enough to afford 2 to 3 more gum nuts. I'm able to do this twice at the start of the level, but you've got to be quick, because these spike rocks are insane. The last tech here we use is actually the spikeweed. Remember when I said the barrel roller is so much stronger than other instant kill zombies? Well, there's another reason for that. See, he doesn't actually instant kill, he just does a lot of damage. So much in fact it's essentially an instant kill, but importantly it isn't. Zombies can't instant kill gum, it's just premium pretty privilege. But zombies certainly are allowed to do a lot of damage to gum. And unlike most turbo high damage threats like Gargs, this guy has a tiny health pool which perfectly denies the gum nuts bonus HP. It's almost like this world is tailor made to stop me from doing this stupid challenge, but I persevere. By using the spikeweed to pop the barrels while they're out of plank range, we're able to not only decrease the amount of damage we're taking, but also increase the amount of gum nuts left behind after each gum nut. This strategy worked, but it took the last of my sanity. All in all, this level took a casual 5 hours of constant attempts. Just subscribe to my channel to restore my soul, please. Well, that level was actual biblical hell. I just beg the next level is gentle on my poor brain. You just can't make this shit up. Believe it or not, I'm actually prepared for this level. You can't do an impossible challenge like this without a little prep. So who's our unlikely savior for this challenge? A lot of you guys made some really good guesses in the last video, but clearly no one can think outside the box like me, because no one guessed that I would be using the teleportato mine. That's right, the plan is to stall out with the suck and blow, then teleport a zombie over the line with the teleportato, triggering the lawnmower. Well, that's the theory at least, I've not actually tested it out. And it turns up, you can't dig the teleportato mine. I am shit out of ideas. I spent a lot of time trying different things out. Here's the new plan. We isolate a buckethead zombie from the rest of the pack, and at the end of the level, we use a spikeweed plant food to move it over the front, triggering the lawnmower. Unfortunately, this one still counts as the zombie trampling the flowers. Now, this next one's a stretch. Maybe we can use my least favorite plant in the entire game here, the Sundew Tangler. The idea is that the Tangler subdues a zombie, at which point we use the escape route to relocate it. My jaw actually dropped as it started working, until it didn't. Look guys, I really didn't want to do this, but there's only one way I see out of this situation. The only solution to this problem as far as I see is to teach the zombies a more divine route out of this level. Now many of you have already pointed out, the Solar Sage is on the table. It doesn't hurt a zombie, it doesn't disappear a zombie, in fact you could argue that it's improving a zombie's well-being. And that's about as pacifist as it could possibly get. But I will be keeping the use of this plant to an absolute minimum for 2 reasons. One, this plant is beyond broken, it would trivialize the challenge. It's like the Explodonut on nuclear steroids. And maybe more importantly, reason 2, I don't think forced religious indoctrination is the pacifist path you guys think it is. Regardless, I'll be using this monster on the absolute hardest levels in the game, and even then only once per stage. Day 16 was one of the 2 levels I was most dreading. We need to protect some rather malicious little beings trying to kill zombies themselves. Luckily, thanks to my audience who is much better at this game than I am, you pointed out in the last video that the escape route is a godsend here. And you're right, it trivialized the level. For the first time in maybe 8 hours of grinding, this was an easy level. Day 17 didn't have anything too stand out to deal with, so I decided to try a new strategy. I like to call this little maneuver the powerful Hollywood film producer, as the plan is to accumulate an obscene amount of wealth so we can gum on anyone we want with no repercussion. It worked a treat. Again, it's a bit overkill and didn't really handle the seagulls, but it did a good job. Day 18 is a conveyor belt level. I cannot believe I'm saying this, but I wish this world had more conveyor belt levels. Day 19, and man, that's really soon. We did the same thing we did a couple level back, so you know what that means? It's time for Shagrot's patented micro presentation. And for this world, I'll be educating you on the most underrated animal on Earth. And what do I consider the most underrated animal on Earth? The dung beetle. Dung beetles are one of my favourite animals of all time, and I think it's really unfortunate they get such a bad rap. Dung beetles are unbelievably strong. People don't understand quite how strong a dung beetle is. The average human can lift roughly twice its weight. The average gorilla, considered to be the strongest non-insect on Earth, can lift 10 times its own weight. The average ant, that is often incorrectly considered the strongest animal on Earth, can lift 20 to 50 times its own weight. That's the equivalent to a human lifting a car. But the dung beetle, the average dung beetle can lift 1,141 times its own body weight. That is the equivalent of a human lifting 3 full cement trucks. To me, there's a real cosmic irony to the dung beetle. To lift such an incomprehensible amount of weight makes it the pinnacle of biology. There is no animal as strong as the dung beetle, and it has spent its evolutionary history perfecting its ability to lift just to move poo around. If there's a god, he has a wicked sense of humour. Dung beetles aren't just strong though, they're incredibly intelligent. Dung beetles will climb on top of their big poo balls, and they will stargaze. They will look up to the sky and take a mental image of the stars, and that's how they navigate. That is just unbelievably cool. That's the end of this week's presentation. I hope you have a bit more respect for the dung beetle. Day 20 and the game starts doing that thing where the last levels of the game are randomly baby easy. The toughest zombie on day 20 was a conehead. We take those. Day 21's a simple sun collection level. 2,500 pretty weak as far as challenges go. Have I not been tested enough? This level is the ultimate test in durability. In my first attempt, I created what might go down as the absolute worst combo of plants possible. I don't even know what to say, that is horrendous. The Jorking It Tall Nuts, unsurprisingly, did not hold very well. One takeaway from this attempt though was that the breaks in the cannon fire do leave a really small window to use the reinforcement without killing any imps. With this strategy in mind, I go for a similar strategy but using gum nuts to benefit from the reinforcement. I know that the pumpkins seem a bit insane when I can go for more bulk for much cheaper, but I really want to keep the first couple areas free to afford myself space to use the reinforcement. This plan worked surprisingly well. I did eventually cut the pumpkins in favour of more gum nuts, but this level took under an hour to beat. That's a huge dub. Clearly I was too confident after that, as the game chucks us another flower level. But it made the mistake of including seagulls. Because of that, I'm able to maneuver them around and trigger the lawnmowers without ever using a solar sage. Day 24 is the level that I dreaded most. In the Nut Challenge, this was one of only 2 levels I had to cheat on to beat. Those 2 beans have cost me hours of my life stressing over this level, but in a much needed twist of fortune, the escape routes make this level pretty easy. Frustratingly, I realised only on the last level that I could have done this suck and blow basically the entire world if I just replaced the hurricane with the gum nut. It achieves basically the same result. Day 1's the same as always. You'll notice as we go along in this world that I tend to avoid the minecarts at all costs. I actually think it's one of the better mechanics in the game, I just can't really be bothered with it. Day 2 introduces us to the first new zombie in the Prospector. This zombie is not that bad to be honest. A single hurricane deals with it with no problem. Day 3 and the world has wasted no time giving us another new zombie, and this time it's the piano zombie, or pianist zombie if you want to be all proper about it. I've gone on record as to call a lot of zombies the worst, but this guy is the devil himself. Upon his introduction, I didn't pay him too much mind. Just another instant kill zombie to send a gumnut jow. That was, however, until I got to the very end of the level and narrowly avoided the loss by about 1 nanosecond. Let me be clear to you guys. This zombie isn't challenging, he's not difficult to play against. He is just so time consuming. He sextuples the amount of time it takes to beat any level because of the sheer amount of randomness of the zombies moseying up or down. This guy is the worst. Day 4 is a conveyor belt level. I'm so glad we can skip over these this time because I cannot stand the Wild West conveyor belt levels, easily the worst in the game. Day 5 and yet another zombie is introduced in the Great Zombie, which you guys informed me is a very obvious reference to Back in the Future, which I missed because I've watched about 5 movies in my entire life. For the first time in a hot minute, I'm able to say safely that this zombie is no threat at all. So far I've used the suck and blow in each level because it's so much easier than using wall stall. Using walnuts on cooldown is a surprisingly high APM task, but on day 6 I made a huge upgrade. Now I've tried to force the aloe into many a strategy, and whilst he can work, he never really benefits the strategy, he's just sort of there for the sake of it. But someone in Twitch chat rightly pointed out I wouldn't need to keep replacing garlics if I just put an aloe down. I think this is the very first time that the aloe has actually felt like a real benefit. It's not a big difference, but it's much more comfortable. All that said, it didn't matter in the slightest because the piano just waltzed through them. This day is a plan your defense stage, which tend to be very hard in this challenge, and this one was no different. I spent ages working out a way to stall everyone out to the end of the level, but the only thing that could hold was reinforcement spam, which, to be fair, held zombies back effortlessly. And with all the zombies on the screen, all that's left is to let the lawnmowers rip. So this is what makes this world unbearable. This level is easy. Gumnut plus reinforcement is a truly unholy combo. It takes absolutely no effort or thought whatsoever. Just 15 minutes of waiting around till all the zombies appear on screen, and then we cross our fingers that all the lawnmowers trigger at the same time, or that the zombies don't move into mowerless lanes. With every zombie moving up or down on a 50-50, it's just like passing 50 odd coin flips in a row, no big ask really. There is very little we can do about this. The garlic and sweet potato are good in theory, being able to move zombies around, but those plants just sort of wrestle with the piano zombie going back and forth, and it makes it harder if anything. This level, despite being ridiculously easy to stall out, took 3 full hours of attempts. That's not the longest grind we've had to do. I think the worst level to this day was 8 hours spent towards the end of Big Wave Beach and the Nut Challenge. But this certainly felt like the longest grind, as there's one more quirk to the piano zombie that I've not mentioned yet. Seemingly innocuous is the little jingle jangle of the piano's melody. This is a fun little addition to the regular playthrough of the game, but if your aim is to stall the game out for as long as you can, then you are stuck listening to this 3-second piano loop for hours upon hours upon hours. It is truly mind-numbing. In the end, I was able to beat this level with infinite plant food. That allows us to make every zombie hit the lawnmower at the same time. I thought this would be a permanent solution to the piano zombie, but spoiler, I was never able to recreate this success throughout the entire world. Day 7 was the introduction of something way more important than a new zombie. It's the first appearance of my new VTuber model thing. Don't worry, he won't be appearing in videos, but I was excited to take it out for a spin, so he'll be here for the next few levels. If you do want to see more of this cute little fella, however, follow me on Twitch. Day 7 didn't have any pianos, thus it was pretty easy. Day 9 was a given plant level. I just learned from the original Alex's latest video that these are called brain busters. You should check that video out. Day 10 is the first time we have to deal with the chicken wrangler. The danger of the chicken wrangler is a bit multifaceted. Firstly, these little hell spawns do a lot of damage, enough to make wall stall entirely unviable. Secondly, if these zombies go untriggered, they spawn chickens after the lawnmowers. But this isn't really a problem because thirdly, these zombies just trigger at random a lot. Totally unprompted, chickens will just spawn off screen in a way that's really hard to react to. Fourthly, these zombies do not care about the hurricane in the slightest. It's almost like these chickens are made of lead or something and barely get pushed back. Fifthly, there's about a 1 in 10 chance that each chicken will just ignore the sweet potato. And sixthly, and maybe most damningly, is the fact that the sheer amount of chickens on screen when stalling them out like this causes an insane amount of lag, turning levels that should have taken 15 minutes to beat into 40-minute slogs. The saving grace of this abundance of avian bodies is that going forward, the gum nut is turbo value. Like this plant will shit out 100 gum per use. Day 11 is an extremely interesting challenge I forgot existed. We're limited to just 500 sun. This is what I absolutely love about this series. This level would normally just be picking 5 of any broken plant and sitting back as it fires away, but for this challenge we really need to think outside the box. Ideally, we need a setup that's going to be sustainable, and I know just the plant for a bit of rejuvenation. The idea of this strategy is to set up a single row of walnuts in front of an aloe that's on a minecart so it can heal all of the walnuts on demand, while we spam zero cost stalling plants. Cute idea, but the aloe is practically useless here. Credit where it's due though, we did pass this level first try, but I do suspect the reinforcement probably had a larger contribution to our victory. Day 12 is just a simple skip'ems. Day 13 was an unnoteworthy easy level, and you know what that means? It's time for my favourite part of this series, Shagrot's micro presentation. And this week is about my absolute least favourite content on YouTube. There are many forms of sludge content. Reaction videos, AI slop, doom posting, any sort of pilled content, but for me, one type of slop remains king. How to succeed at YouTube videos. In my opinion, this is the absolute worst content on the platform. It falls squarely into the self-help category of videos, which already kind of suck, and it's just millions of videos containing the exact same 10 points. These content farms are always run by the most obnoxious people on earth, and they are always trying to sell you something. Now, before I complain too much about them, I just want to let you know I've been there. I, like most people, always wanted to be a YouTuber growing up, and I used to listen to these videos every single day at the gym. But it's just so motivating to see these channels that have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of subscribers, and you just want to absorb that information so you can see success as well. But the issue is these channels just fake it all. These videos will show off all the money they're making, but I assure you it's all fake. These channels will claim to be experts at YouTube and know the algorithm like the back of their hand, and their proof is always that they have a large following. But the issue is these channels grow by just recreating this sludge over and over and over again, and because there's so much interest in it, they do pick up subscribers. They'll tell you that the advice they're giving you has led them to their success, but it hasn't. These videos try and sell you on these algorithm hacks that are just blatant lies. This video claims you need to lie about the use of AI. Not only is that completely unfounded, it's dishonest and lame. This video claims that you shouldn't make a video unless someone else has already made that video. That's insane advice. But maybe the single worst advice these channels always give is to just steal content. It's so annoying. There are thousands and thousands of channels out there that just repeat the exact same video hundreds of times, telling you to steal content. It might be the single most common advice in this niche, and it's always the hustler type that tell you this. I can't stand them. Chinstrap McDipshit over here made a video called How I Got 29,000 Subscribers in 3 Days Just by Copying Other People's Content. The title's written like it's a challenge video. Or how about how to steal content on shorts with no strikes and still go viral? There are tens of thousands of videos out there just like this, and I just find it really lame. I'll end this presentation by giving a bit of advice. I think it's fine to watch a couple of these videos, there are a lot to learn here, but just watch one or two, they are all the same. I think you'll find more success by watching videos on how to learn different editing softwares and learn how to master audio. Finally, the most boring advice is normally the correct advice, just keep making content. In Piracies, Day 14 was possibly the most difficult level of any world in any challenge I've ever had to do. But Day 14 of Wild West might actually have topped it. I'm not going to dwell on this level too long, as there isn't much complexity to it. The piano zombie just made this level absolutely hell, and the amount of chickens make it supremely hard to hold the zombies back. I tried so many strategies in the 5 hours it took to beat this level. Gumnuts and tile turnips are cool until you realize you're spending thousands of sun to do less than what the reinforcement does for free. I tried sapflings and reinforcement spam, but even that barely worked. Suck and blow is completely useless because the chickens just don't care. Once again, I decided that it's time for us to bring out the strongest strategy at our disposal, the Boing Setter. Unfortunately, the Boing Setter didn't work in the last world, but I still believe it's the strongest stalling plant in the entire game. But for some baffling reason, only known to the inner machination of PopCap's mind, the Boing Setter kills chickens. It doesn't do any damage, but it instantly kills all chickens on screen. I know the Boing Setter destroyed gravestones, but this is just taking the piss. I came so close to giving up on this level. 4 hours and 43 minutes into this level, I had it all but beat until a chicken walked right through a garlic, like giving no shits at all. This tilted me so bad. I almost gave up the entire challenge, but instead of backing down, I just slept it off and came back stronger the next day. And I beat the stage in under an hour of attempts. Day 15 was a doozy. This is the first level that limits how many plants can die, and we're only allowed 2 deaths. This spells doom for this challenge. This means we can't use any form of wall plants, as not only do they get eaten, but we'd have no way of triggering lawnmowers, without digging up the walls, which counts as dying. Normally, when walls fail, we spam instant, but we also can't do that, because that also counts as losing plants. With no walls or no suck and blow, chat instantly wrote this one off as impossible, and I was inclined to believe them. Except we do have one super OP worst case scenario option in the solar stage, which allows us to end the stage without needing lawnmowers. But all it did was confirm my worst fear. The piano zombie is actually the devil. He can't be enlightened. That's so fucking annoying and means this level is basically impossible. Except moments before I gave up, I had genuinely one of the most brilliant ideas of my life. This level doesn't have any chickens, meaning the Boing Setter is an option here. And the Boing Setter is a way of stalling zombies back without needing any instant use plants and without having any walls eaten. We still can't end without lawnmowers, but check out how cool this little maneuver is. Using an intricate system of infinites and escape routes, we're able to create a pathway of infinites that the zombies can waltz right through without ever needing to eat a plant. If we repeat this row by row, eventually we'll be able to trigger every single lawnmower without ever losing a plant. Now this is unbelievably cool, but it still doesn't work. The piano zombie just moves zombies into the lanes with the Boing Setter, making this level impossible. Except this happened. The level just sort of ended. I tried to figure out what caused this. Chat assumed it was the Boing Setter pushing them so far back they despawned, but I've used the Boing Setter a load. It's one of my favourite plants, and this has never happened before. My only assumption is that having so many zombies alive and moving stuff around with the escape route might have crashed the game or something. It did make a hideous glitchy sound when it happened. All I know is I'm summing this one up to the lore of we take those. Day 16 is a really easy protection level, there isn't much to say. Check out the sick fan art someone made though, I was laughing at this for like 5 minutes straight. Day 17 is a flower level, which I'm able to beat by letting a bull zombie launch an imp over the flower line. I was pretty chuffed at that solution. Day 18 was the single hardest level of the nut challenge that I didn't kind of cheat on. And whilst I was actually playing out this level, I started to think it wasn't possible, but not for the usual reasons. This level contains an unreal amount of chicken wranglers. So many, in fact, I was convinced we wouldn't be able to hold them back. And on top of this, we only get 1,500 sun to deal with this full sage. And I couldn't find a solution that worked. Suck and blow is not viable here because not only are we limited on sun, the chickens just don't care about the hurricane, or the garlic, or the sweet potato for that matter. But I did somehow get it to work using 2 sweet potatoes. This way we guarantee the chickens are sucked into one lane and we don't need to use any garlic, they'll just get eaten up straight away. The issue of this build is now we need to use twice as many gum nuts on a limited budget, but the spearmint was able to solve this. But here's what got me thinking this wasn't going to work. There are currently hundreds of chickens on screen and hundreds of gum holding them down. The game slowed down to a crawl. I know it doesn't look too bad right now, but what you're watching is on 2 times speed. If you look carefully, the gum nuts are triggering in slow motion, and it felt so much worse than it looks. I was genuinely worried the game was going to crash. Luckily we beat it only in a couple of attempts. This was an incredibly fun level looking back, it was a cool way to beat it. Day 19 is another brutal combination of challenges. This time it's not losing more than 2 plants with only 2,000 sun to spend. We have all the same issues as the last time we did this type of level. I can't stall with wall plants and we can't use any instant use plants either. But I concocted maybe my greatest idea yet. I call it the she bounced on my infinites till I garlicked. I probably need a better name for that. By putting all of our plants in one row and forcing the zombies into that row, we drastically cut down on the amount of sun we need to spend to defend our lawn. And on top of this, I found a way to recreate the effect of the suck and blow without ever needing a plant to die. By using 3 Boing Setters in combination with 3 infinites, we're able to hold back zombies almost indefinitely. By sacrificing one of our few allowed plant deaths, we use a power lily and place a garlic in our lane. This strategy worked so well without any input that I left to go make some noodles and kept the level running on stream. And as I returned 10 minutes later, the zombies had just chewed through the sweet potato, and I was able to sit down and use the plant food just in time to win the level. Honestly, one of my all-time gaming achievements. I think maybe what's most notable about this strategy is that it is 100% impossible without the aloe. The aloe healing the garlics and sweet potato was absolutely crucial. I'm so glad we finally found a use for it. Honestly, one of my all-time favourite plants. Day 20 I accidentally skipped over in my playthrough, but it's a brain boggler or whatever, so it didn't matter. Day 21 is another stupid level where we're limited on sun and we have a flower line, but I found a really stupid workaround. I discovered in my umpteenth squillion attempts at this world that for some reason there's a really small chance that the reinforcement will turn the prospector around. So I just kept attempting the level until I could reverse the polarity of this moonshine drunken dullard, and it just kind of worked. Day 22 is another brain bombarder. Now, day 23. This is the first level I couldn't beat. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't give it too many attempts, as it's pretty obvious from the start, this level is close to impossible. Don't let zombies trample the flowers, don't lose more than 2 plants. Chickens and piano zombies. This is just such a killer combination of challenges, I don't think I have what it takes to beat it. For now, I'm gonna come back to all the seemingly impossible levels with a strategy that I think will work, but it only works once I've beaten the full game. Hi, I'm Director's Cut Shagrot, and I'm here to let you in on what my super secret technique is to beat these impossible levels. The plan was to use something called save states, which is essentially just cheating. I wanted to be able to create save points in these levels so I could return to them if I failed a level. This just allows me to condense tens of hours of grinding into just a handful. However, as I am the worst at literally everything I've ever done, I managed to brick my computer while trying to set this up and had to completely factory reset it, losing weeks of work on different projects. I also corrupted and lost my PvZ account. So at the very end of this video, instead of cheating, I'll give all the unbeaten levels one final grand push, using advice I got from hundreds of comments. But in the meantime, whenever you hear me mention a super secret technique, just remember how much of a fucking idiot I am. Day 24 shouldn't have been as difficult as I made it, by constantly forgetting about the plants we're protecting. But the reinforcement makes this level specifically so hard to lose, it only took 40 minutes of attempts, which is really good for this challenge.
No! No! Bad squirrel! Those are my nuts!
Day 1 of Frostbite Caves, and I'm really stretching myself thin trying to find synonyms for the phrase business as usual. But you know, it was day 1, it was easy. Day 2, and I'm starting to get that probably misguided faint taste of optimism, as I'm remembering that the tile system in this world tends to filter zombies for me. That could make this world significantly easier for me. In fact, speaking of, Day 3 is the tutorial for the Hurricane, in which the world filters all the zombies into one lane for us. The game's encouraging us to play the way we've been playing in this challenge, which is pretty cool. It's nice for the game to acknowledge that there's other ways to win a stage than just rows of damaging plants. Day 4 introduces us to what should be one of the biggest threats in this challenge yet, the leopard snow thrower guy. This zombie, in theory, forces us to play the game on a completely different axis, making us rely on heat producing plants, of which our options are quite limited. In fact, I think the hot potato is the only real viable option, as the torchwood, which people beg me to use for hours, I think is a pretty risky option. If I'm not playing close attention, which I very rarely am, it will accidentally get triggered and blow up half the zombies on screen. Most frustratingly, Gumnut doesn't stop this guy from throwing snowballs, so I was ready for this guy to cost me tens of hours of my life. But that's just sort of not what happened. For some reason, in most of this world, the leopard zombies were getting stuck on already frozen plants. As in, they were spending most of the level throwing snowballs at plants that were already completely frozen. I don't know if this is a known issue or just how it's supposed to happen, but in the nut challenge, I don't remember this happening at all. I guess I was mostly just spamming exploder nuts at that point in the game, so I don't know. Let me know in the comments if it's supposed to work this way. It was really weird. Day 5 is a brain breaker. Be prepared for me to say that a lot in this world. Day 6 limits our selection to just 2 plants. So far in this challenge, I've really enjoyed finding funny combination for these type of levels, but I won't lie. The last 2 worlds have worn me down so much, I went straight to my power combo, Gumnut and Reinforcement. We're also given the Tornut as one of the pre-selected plants, and the zombies are filtered into the center naturally, so this was a pretty easy level. The way Day 7 was set up exactly mimics the way we use garlics, so this might be the easiest suck and blow of my life. At this point, I was starting to get really suspicious that this world has been a bit too smooth. I just knew something was coming up. Day 8 was another brain bomber, but Day 9 was the introduction to perhaps the biggest nuisance of the challenge yet. Not the hardest zombie to overcome. God, I hope nothing takes that title from the pianist. But this is definitely the most annoying zombie so far, the Dodo Rider. Mr. Doodoo Rider is annoying for a couple of reasons. Obviously, he flies through our walls, and that's definitely a hassle. But what's much more annoying is his weird interaction with the sliding tiles. I'm sure you're all aware that the dodo will ignore the tiles when they walk past them. But do you know what happens when they pass them the other way? As in, if a hurricane blows them past the sliding tile? What do you think the expected result is? Do you think they once again ignore the tile? Or do you think this time they follow the rules and get shifted by the tile, like every other zombie? Unfortunately, it was the secret third option. They fucking die. That one tiny interaction, which definitely shouldn't happen by the way, has cost me so much time in this world. Honestly, probably the biggest annoyance yet. Every other zombie just functions like normal when it's blown past it. But no, the dodo obviously just fucking dies. Fortunately, they don't do much damage, so the Gumnut is a very solid solution against them. But because they ignore the tiles or get fucking killed by them, they really divide my attention, which is just a huge hassle. To make up for the fact that the dodo had really upset me at this point, on this day, I introduced one of our strongest stalling effects yet, the time warp. Yes, that's right, I had not forgot about the time warp. Why was I hiding this option from you guys up until now? I don't know, to be honest. I just thought it'd kind of be fun to bring out later. It's so awesome in a challenge like this. Not only is it a super powerful crowd control tool, but there's a second, even more useful aspect to it. I'm guessing most people watching this aren't super into the mechanics of Plants vs Zombies, but there is a secret attempt to balance this plant because it's not a premium plant. The time warp will heal all zombies it's sent back. This unlocks so many niche plants for us to use at a later date, which we couldn't use without it, and that is really cool. That said, this plant's not amazing in this world. The dodos end up rocking ahead of the rest of the zombies, which is really annoying, but it's still nice to have, and this level was pretty easy. Day 10 was yet another brain bubbler. Day 11 is a level where all the zombies are filtered into one lane, but we only get 2 plants to choose. At first, I used double Hurricane, which immediately fell flat when the dodos kicked in. The next most obvious choice was double Gumnut, and you know what I'm only just realizing? I think the Imitator is the single most powerful plant in this challenge. It's not a plant that immediately jumps out as overpowered, but man, doubling up on turbo power plants like the Gumnut or the Solo Tomato is just wildly powerful. That said, Double gum nut wasn't working. There was just far too many dodos for 2 gum nuts to handle, half of which instantly got frozen. I tried the gum nut and the reinforcement, but again, it just wasn't working. So it's time to finally unleash the strongest plant in this challenge. Despite the Boingsetter's numerous failings in this challenge, including forcing zombies to walk the plank and butchering chickens wholesale, in this world, there's nothing the Boingsetter can fuck up. Surely nothing will go wrong this time, right? Well, actually it worked perfect. Way too perfect. The Boingsetter is so good at stalling zombies, they end up avoiding the lawnmower. I think I have to finally put my hands up and admit the Boingsetter probably isn't the amazing ultra turbo powerhouse I thought it was, which is a shame because that was kind of my late game assurance. I now officially have no idea what I'm going to do in the last worlds of this challenge. As for this day specifically, I ended up pulling a pretty cheap move. I rented an extra seed slot, which isn't directly against the rules, but certainly a bit lame. With the aid of the sweet potato, I was able to pull in all the stragglers, and this allowed the gum nut and reinforcement combo to work a charm. Also, this gum nut got frozen perfectly in the scream face. I just kind of thought that was funny. Day 12 of this challenge was actually one of the weirdest levels I've ever played. It's a plan your defense level, and I ended up with one of my coolest layouts yet. Double time warp to keep looping zombies to the front of the lawn, backed up by a row of sapflings, and most importantly, a couple of rows of infinites. This setup was super cool, because not only does it make full use of the sapfling, one of Plant vs. Zombies' unsung heroes, but it actually utilizes the infinites' infinite gimmick. Like each time they chew through the intangible carapace of the infinites, and then struggle to the front of the lawn, like that one episode of Mythbusters, they're teleported right to the start to do it all over again. I call this setup the Sisyphus. That's what made this level cool. But what made this level weird was how buggy it was. For some reason on this level specifically, half the gum nuts I used were just really out of sync. Probably something to do with the tiles, but this is the first time it's happened to me. Like, look at the first dodo I gummed this whole level. It was stuck motionless while the gum was a tile behind it, and it was unable to attack the gum, which meant it was actually permanently stuck here. And the very next time I used the gum nut, the gum appeared way further back and just disappeared after a short time. I don't remember facing a single serious glitch in the nut challenge, but they're happening at an alarming rate in this challenge. And I'm really worrying once we hit the ends levels where there's hundreds of zombies on screen that they might be game breaking. We're just gonna have to wait and see. Day 13 is our first flower level of the world, and unfortunately there's no way for us to force zombies to cross the line. I thought for a moment I could use the imp thrown off the garg, but for some reason in the second game, imps are always thrown to the third column, so that's just not an option. This level's gonna have to be what I think is my second use of the utterly insane solar sage, but there's still an issue. The Gargantua can't be set down the enlightened path, and even if we wanted to stretch the rules of the challenge by turning him into an imp or something, you can't force a garg to eat an impair or something similar. But after digging into the deep, dank recesses of my tiny mind, I did find a very unlikely hero. Now I'm gonna draw up this sentence a little bit to give you time to guess which plant outs this situation, because I'm not sure why, but I got such a kick out of beating this level with the collie power. By first using the solar sage to turn around all the little zombies, we can plant a single collie power to turn away the garg without him ever causing any harm under our influence. Maybe the single most common comment I've had on this series so far was asking for the hypno shroom, and here you go, I finally hypnotized the zombie without causing any harm. In day 15 onwards, the method that I used to record and stream simultaneously stopped working. So you guys are stuck with Mini Shagrot for a little longer, but gauging from the comments left on my last video, you guys don't seem to mind, which is really nice. Day 14 is a really peculiar brain boxer, so we can just skip it, but it does give you hurricanes, and spoiler, this level is totally beatable under the rules of the challenge. All the zombies filter into the middle lane, and we're giving hurricanes an infinite sum. But the issues in this level is the dodos. You guys are probably aware that dodos ignore the tiles, which of course is their main cause of hassle, but that's not actually entirely true. They do very rarely get affected by the tiles, and by using the char guard, we're able to force dodos to walk over the tiles repeatedly, each time hoping that we trigger the tiny chance for those dodos to move over. This seems simple enough, right? Just stall out the level infinitely until the dodos eventually funnel into the center of the stage. But the issue is that the char guard does do a tiny amount of damage, and it will kill a dodo at about 7 to 8 attacks. So we can't just stall out a level infinitely. We have to get insanely lucky. I spent about 6 hours between 2 different streams trying to beat this level, and I definitely got close. But I did eventually elect to skip this stage for now, as it is a brain bejeweler, but I might come back to it when I visit the seemingly impossible levels, as this level is undeniably beatable. I just want to stick to my already fragile upload schedule. Day 15 of this World in the Nut challenge actually ended up going on to be my favourite level in the entire game, and I don't really remember why. I just remember having an absolute blast trying to beat this one about a year ago. And you know what? The second time around in a completely different challenge, this level's ridiculously fun again. This level has to be done with the sucker blow because we need to take zombies out of the endangered plant lane. But on my first attempt, I kind of forgot about the sliding tiles once again. But moments before I'm about to lose an endangered plant, I just panic and put down a sweet potato. And I was able to move a zombie through one of the moving tiles without getting switched up. And after that, I was able to maneuver him perfectly in spot to take out everyone at the end of the level. Unfortunately, literally moments before winning the level, my sweet potato, who keeps getting frozen seconds after getting thawed out, gives in, and the zombies scatter into different lanes and eat the endangered plants. What a brutal way to lose the level. After about an hour of attempts, I forgot that I can just move them into a less obtrusive lane using the escape route. I'm not sure what's special about this level, like seriously, nothing jumps out at me, but I don't know, I think this is just my favourite level in the entire game. Day 6 is yet another brain bereavement. I really don't know how many more B words I've got in me. Day 17 is the introduction of the troglodyte, and I was honestly shocked at how much of a pain this guy was to deal with. I severely underestimated him. I just assumed that instantly killing plants was his only shtick. I don't know if anyone else struggles with this. I guess it's just a problem because of the stupid challenge I'm doing. But I was running out of spaces to place plants. I lost so many levels due to not being able to put a gum nut down on a crucial zombie about to trigger a mower. I think what's worse is this is an issue caused by pure laziness. I just couldn't be bothered to deal with these ice blocks. If I had just thawed them out or destroyed them all with the boing setter, I'm sure this wouldn't have been a problem at all. Thankfully, the double time warp technology makes this level a clean first try. Day 18 is yet another brain blitzkrieg. Normally I get annoyed at the amount of these, but honestly, I don't mind the break. This challenge is extremely exhausting. Day 19 was a pretty easy level, despite the insane amount of zombies in this one, but thankfully it only had 2 flags. There's been a lot of 4 flags levels in this world. I did very nearly lose this level, however, when I misclicked a power up and almost killed a zombie. I think that would have been the most annoying way to lose a level. Day 20 was a completely unnotable level, and you know what that means? It's time for my absolute favourite segment of this challenge, my micro presentation. And this week, we're going to be covering my top 5 favourite homunculuses. Before we get into it, what is a homunculus? Well, a homunculus is very simply a small humanoid creature, and there's very often the implication that this creature has been created by someone. The word homunculus literally translates from Latin as little man. Just to narrow this list down, I'm only going to be counting things that have been explicitly labelled as a homunculus. Coming in at number 5 is this mysterious homunculus plush I found. I've never seen this thing before, but every time I googled the word homunculus for this video, this guy popped up, and I can't deny he has a certain swagger to him. Number 4 is Fibblethip from Magic the Gathering. I think this guy looks super cute and he's a very interesting card. I really want to make a deck out of him. But I exclusively play mono red decks in Magic the Gathering. I also think they've been overdoing him a bit recently. He was cool when he was quite rare. Coming in at number 3 is Caramelec. Not many people know this, but Caramelec is the source of all of my characters and branding. Picture it like this. Caramelec's sort of like an AI image generator, but instead of a nebulous program that functions off stolen content, it's a Polish twink I pay in Monster Energy drinks. Number 2 is Charlie from Smiling Friends. Being the funniest character in the funniest show of all time kind of nets you a top spot in any list, but it's mentioned in one of the episodes that he's a homunculus, so yeah, he's there. If you've not watched Smiling Friends, go watch it. And finally, coming in at number 1, you know who it had to be. It's the Russian cum homunculus. I think the less said about the Russian cum homunculus, the better, but it is still available on YouTube if you're interested. It's quite hard to find though. I think this is the video that put the word homunculus on the map, and I mean, yeah, just a legendary video. Almost certainly the most iconic instance of a homunculus ever. Thank you for listening to my stupid presentation. Day 21's a brain baster. Day 22 is when we finally met the Ferret Wrangler. Now I knew this zombie was coming, obviously, I've beat the game before, but I don't remember it coming so late into the world. I also don't remember the Weasel Wrangler working so different to the Chicken Wrangler, but it does and it's really annoying. The Chicken Wrangler releases chickens upon making contact with a plant, or taking damage, or just randomly when it feels like it, versus the Weasel Wrangler, which has to reach a certain damage threshold. And this difference is extremely troubling. It's really hard to reach that threshold in this challenge. Luckily the weasels are actually less annoying than the chickens, they do less damage, and because they're tankier it does give us a bit of leeway. So I'd actually say the chicken wranglers are worse overall, but these guys are still very annoying. During this level, 2 zombies managed to break out of Gumjow, but I realised just before gumming them back up that this was actually ideal, because it meant I could pop the weasel wranglers from the very other side of the lane, which gave me time to fill all the remaining weasels into lanes that still had their lawnmowers intact. I was extremely chuffed with myself after that. Day 23 is a level where we have to protect a row of char guard. My plan for this level was to purposefully let the char guards free, so once I finish stalling all the zombies, they can just waltz past them. But for some miraculous reason, there was no icy wind in this level. I suppose to stop exactly this, but like, come on, it's day 23. Let's make use of the fucking world gimmick. Because of this, I had to resort to my little mechanism of moving infinite escape routes around. Even though at the end of the day, it's not that complicated of a strategy. It does make me feel inexplicably smart whenever I do it. and smart is a fleeting feeling to an empty-headed fella like me. Day 24 isn't too notable, except for an insane clutch I pulled at the end. I kind of forgot that I had to deal with the weasel zombies, but at the very last second I managed to stun them with the solar tomato. And if a weasel wrangler is stunned when he dies, he doesn't let out the weasels. That is a really big tech that I will probably never do again because it is really annoying to pull off. Day 25 is another brain beatboxer. Day 26 features what might be the most insane guest plant of the entire challenge. Now again, the only real challenge of this level is the Weasel Wrangler, and whilst I could leave it to fate with the Solar Tomato once more, I beat this level with the motherfucking laser beam. Perhaps the last plant I ever thought would feature in this challenge. The laser beam does exactly the perfect amount of damage to trigger every single Weasel Wrangler in a row without killing a single zombie. So by planting the laser beam, letting it fire exactly once and digging it up, the weasels run ahead of everyone else and just trigger everything perfectly. Honestly, maybe the coolest solution I found yet. I originally wrote off day 27 as impossible, but after giving it one last go, I found a killer solution. The issue is that the plants we're defending can shoot diagonally, so there's no way to move them out of the way. I originally forgot that we can use the solar sage, so I wasted a casual 9 hours attempting the stage without it. But when I came back to clear it this way, something miraculous happened. The hunter zombie froze all the rutabagas. This never happened before, and I think it's because I was using the gum nut instead of the hurricane, but this made the level beatable without the solar sage. I almost lost to a hidden zombie, but managed to move him to a mower lane. Insane clutch up right here. Day 28 is a very high plan your defense level, which I was actually able to beat first try thanks to our laser beam tech. Absolute MVP of these levels is the spearmint. Using this to just get a couple hundred more sun makes these infinitely easier when we have to loop gum nut or hurricane. Unfortunately, that's kind of all I've got to say on this level. It was a little bit of a nothing burger. Day 29's one final brain belittler, which is a really disappointing way to end this world.
They're remaking Indiana Jones without Harrison Ford. You can't do that. And now they're making Ghostbusters with only women. What's going on?
Day 1, it's almost business as usual, but as you can see, there's a lot of zombies for day 1. Still easy, no problem, but this is a huge step up from other worlds. Day 2 introduces the parachute zombie. Nothing wild, but it means that we have to play very far back on the lawn. If you can even call this map a lawn, more of a pavement really. Day 3 is a conveyor belt level. I was going to keep up with that little brainbuster bit I had going on in the last video, but upon listening to it back, that wasn't very funny. Day 4 and the shovel guy is already here. For many challenges, this guy's a run ender, but he's honestly not bad for us, just a gum on sight situation. Day 5 is yet another conveyor belt level. Day 6 really highlights how much I sabotage myself in this challenge. We essentially don't need sun producers in this challenge, as the sun is generously provided by the sun tiles, but for some reason, I just refuse to engage with the world gimmicks in this game. I think it's a bit of an autopilot issue. If I'm not really thinking about it, then I just set up at the very back of the lawn with no thought. A skill issue, basically. Day 7 introduces us to the parasol zombie. This is actually worse than you think. It only affects the sapling, but without access to any walls due to the excavator, this is a must-have plant. So ironically, without access to the sap flinger, we're in a really sticky situation. Fortunately, for some reason, the parasol doesn't actually block the sap. I guess it's because the sap targets the floor, but I don't know, that looks like it should be blocked to me. So to summarize, day 7, nothing happened. Day 8 doesn't let us choose our plants. And day 9 is a conveyor level. We are speed running this world. Day 10 is the Endurian tutorial. Here's a little spoiler for you guys. When I do my third PvZ challenge, I want to do one of these every year or so, maybe longer, just to keep it fresh. But when I do get around to the next one, I'm 99% set on beating the game only using the Endurian. I love this plant so fucking much, and it's a travesty that this is my second challenge where I don't get to use it. I don't know how the challenge would work, probably some variation if I can use any plant, but the Endurian is the only one that can deal damage. I don't know, I just think it would be fun. Day 11 and we have a serious problem. This level introduces the dragonfly zombie. Bar none our biggest challenge yet. I've said that a lot so far, which does make sense. Games tend to get harder as they progress, but we've hit somewhat of a wall here. They fly over our walls and aren't affected by any instant use plants at our disposal. Not even the gum nut can stop this monster. The only thing that does permanently solve this issue is the perpetual girl failure, the boing setter. But once again, as if designed to perfectly ruin this challenge, the boing setter squishes the dragonflies. I know the challenge is not killing any zombies, but I love bugs and there's no need to kill them. Now we do have a way to best this zombie. A combination of tool nuts to stall and time warp to reset the flying zombies works a charm. The time warp goes from a nice bonus to solo carrying this whole challenge. So what's the issue here? Well, from my time experimenting on this world, this is the only combination of plants that I could beat the dragonfly with. And seeing as the dragonfly is in practically every level from now on, that means we kind of just have to use this exact setup level after level. And it's a really linear strategy. It doesn't really interact with any other plants. No instant use plant can do anything meaningful against flying zombies, and we're just going to be doing the same thing over and over again. Which is a real shame because the thing I love most about this challenge is the variety it brings to the game. So because of this super powerful combo that we need to use, this world actually becomes the easiest one to play, but by far the hardest to make interesting. On day 12 I attempted a suck and blow, not yet realizing the full magnitude of our bug problem. And just look at the way this map is flooded with sun tiles, completely unfettered access to sun, yet I effortlessly managed to avoid every single one of them. I wish I knew why I refused to engage with world gimmicks like this. Time Warp sweep this level, but it did take a few attempts to be fair. Day 13 is a brainbuster, but day 14 is also a brainbuster. Day 15 was an endangered plant level, which does give this challenge a much needed layer of spice. First time around I tried the time warp loop, but this is actually one of the only levels in this entire world it doesn't work on. We need to use sweet potatoes to clear the middle lane, but the excavators really mess up that plan and the time warp doesn't deal with them quick enough. I then realized this level doesn't actually have any dragonflies, so I took my favorite failure out for a spin, and it actually aced it. There's this really awkward dance you need to perform when using the boing setup. Once you've reached the final wave, you need to continue to stall, otherwise the zombies that have been pushed off the screen won't get hit by the lawnmower. But you can't do this with boing setters because they'll just push them back. This is really random and super time consuming, but we actually got it first time around on this level, which is pretty cool. Day 16 is yet another conveyor belt level, but again, I'm not mad, this time it's a pleasant break. Day 17 might be the final mosquito-less day of the world, so I went in with boing setters. This was the introduction to the backpack imp, which might be my favorite zombie in this world, as it's finally a use case for the boing setter's weird instant use destruction thing. She instantly destroys the tents they leave behind. I guess you could argue there's zombies in the tent, which is thematically true, but I think they're closer to the portals from modern day. This was actually another first try despite the boing setter's clunkiness. Day 18 is yet another gimmick level. In day 19, I brought the Ice Bloom along. I think it's such a cool plant for this challenge because despite doing damage, Time Warp heals zombie back up, allowing us to massively increase our stalling power. The issue is, however, because the Time Warp is just so good at stalling, it's already far more stalling power than we need. So the Ice Bloom's further increase in stalling doesn't actually do anything. It's like diminishing returns and all that. Day 20 is completely unnotable, so you know what that means. It's time for my micro presentation. And this time around, we're talking about embarrassing British traditions. Now, for context for my international viewers, which is most of you, Britain has a bit of a culture problem. It's a long-standing debate in the country, but what is British culture? It's not that we don't have any, it's just a bit unpronounced. Old people specifically really hate it when you claim there's no British culture or traditions, and they all point to the same thing: weird British blackface dances. Now, these dances vary from region to region, but they're all basically the same. It's a dance or walk or march or party that prominently features blackface. Now, unlike most uses of blackface, which is aimed to insult black people, this is supposed to represent Britain's industrial past, invoking the idea of a hard day's work in a coal mine or a chimney sweep. Regardless, it's very lame, but this is surprisingly divisive. And one thing's for certain, old people fucking love blackface. Any media covering this topic will be flooded with comments like these. Now, I personally think that the blackface debate really misses the point here. It's really futile debating this. It's just a bunch of old people saying it's not racist, it's just meant to be coal, immediately followed up by go back to Africa. But instead of debating, it's so much easier to just laugh at it. Because at the end of the day, this proud British tradition is just a bunch of putrid pudgy pig lords performing the weakest dances found across the globe. What is there to even say about this? It's embarrassing. Please remember us for fish and chips, and not whatever this is. Day 21 limits what plants we can use, but I've got to say, this is kind of a sick selection. They look really tough together. Day 22 also limits what we can use. I kind of wish they put these tiles in some of the normal levels. I think it would have been really fun to try and navigate the zombies around them. Day 23 was really easy, but I've only just noticed that the boing setter's ability to destroy backpacks is actually worthless, as the zombies that spawn out just get time warped to the front anyway, like they're not a threat at all. Day 24 was the easiest flower line yet. I forgot to bring any garlics or sweet potatoes or anything, but the dragonflies are so fucking fast that I played normally and I just sort of won anyway. Day 25 is the classic 2 plant slot challenge. And now this actually is the last level without dragonflies. And because of that, I ran it back with double boing setter. And for the third time in a row, we trounced it first try. I'm starting to come around to this little blue shit. Day 26 was turbo boring, but I want to use this time to show you something crazy. I don't think you're all aware just how good the Plant vs. Zombies community actually is. Like, I've heard it be disrespected quite a lot, but I've been a full-time Plant vs. Zombies YouTuber for coming up 2 years now. And in that time, amongst the tens of thousands of comments I've got, it's been almost nothing but pleasant comments. A handful of criticism here and there, but nothing actually rude. Admittedly, I kind of think I sit just on the outside of the Plants vs. Zombies community, as we're a bit more casually focused here, and you guys do watch my non-Plant vs. Zombies stuff. But we definitely have a massive overlap. But I've recently been seeing some wild success on a second channel with a completely different audience, and you know what? It kind of sucks. Most people on there are normal and lovely, like every community, but man, I've been going strong on that channel for a month, and I've already got my first death threats. And a truly upsetting amount of actual leaving embarrassing comments. So yeah, just a reminder that you guys are one of the most pleasant and lovely communities on the entire platform, and I'm very thankful to call you my community. I really hate to do this. On even the most unnoteworthy days, I like to talk about something just for the sake of completionism. But I'm gonna turbo through the last of the days, as legitimately, it took like 15 minutes to beat. Day 27 introduced the Crystal Skull Zombie, who hits like a wet noodle, just bouncing off tall nuts. Day 28 was a second tile level. Day 29 happened, I guess. Day 30 was a mold colony level, but it didn't change a thing. And day 31 is one final gimmick level before a shitty zomboss to end the world. Day 1 is business as usual, except it isn't. See, I didn't even bother looking whether there'd be any special zombies in this, because it's day 1, why would there be? But this level does actually contain jetpack zombies, and as I wasn't expecting it, I didn't bother bringing any answers to it, so I actually did fail day 1 of this world. My first ever day 1 fail. Surely this is a sign of good things to come. Day 2, and I see an opportunity to go for the suck and blow. A staple strategy that I've not actually had the option to use in a while. I'll always find this strategy really fun. Day 3, and I've come up with one of my favourite strategies to date, double tall nut. This innocuous strategy has a real simplicity to it, and combined with the reinforcement, we have an option that may actually work for a fair bit. It's not the most flashy build ever, I just like how it looks. Day 4 is our first sun bomb level. These are usually an interesting but very easy gimmick, where you need to pick between collecting sun normally or detonating them like 3 cherry bombs. Oh geez, what a hard decision. But in this challenge, these levels become an extremely hard skill check. Sure, it's easy to just not click on the suns as they're falling, but so much as having your finger go near the sun, even if you're just holding another plant, will detonate them. I'm not proud to admit this, but these levels took a lot of time off of me, but we beat this one in only a couple of attempts. Day 5, we suck and blow again. I don't know why I'm feeling this way after playing this game for so long, but I'm only just realizing right now how cool the shield generator zombie is. I don't know, I just find its design to be really charming, therefore one of my favourite zombies in the game. Day 6 doesn't let us pick our plants. Day 7 was a fairly standard level, but I forgot to bring the reinforcement. I decided to stick it out to see how much of a difference it actually makes. I've been suspecting that the reinforcement's power has been a bit exaggerated. Sure, it gives plant food to the entire board, which theoretically doubles the health of every plant, but in practice it only really affects the front row of plants. It did not take long to realize we absolutely need the reinforcement, it wasn't even close about it. Day 8 to conveyor belt level. Day 9 limits us to 13 plants, which means we can't just spam tall nuts. We remedy this by bringing along the time warp, which gives our limited tall nuts a much needed breather, and this strategy actually worked really well. Day 10 brings a zombie that I totally forgot about, the Discotron. See, this is a zombie that I can stall. Like, surprisingly, a single gum nut will hold this thing till the very end of the level. But it doesn't stop it from mass producing disco stews. And I mean, just look at this absolute carnage. This is way too many zombies for day 10. Leading quite heavy on our single time warp, we are still able to stall out this madness though. Except at the very last moment, after 15 minutes of slogging through this one of the Discotrons spawn a zombie pixel perfect to avoid the lawnmower. Man, that sucks. I think this is just going to be another annoying RNG fest zombie a la piano zombie. We're able to beat this one second try at least. Day 11 is completely unnotable, and you know what that means? It's time for our micro presentation. And this world's presentation is called Shout Out to the Summoner Class. Shout Out to the Summoner Class was the name of the first ever YouTube video I ever made. Now, I've wanted to make YouTube videos my entire life, but I always chronically procrastinated on it. But about 5 years ago, I made my first ever YouTube video. Okay, I didn't even make it, I only got halfway through production, but that was the start of my YouTube journey. I recently found the audio track for it, which I thought was long gone, and I gave it a listen. It was a real nice walk down memory lane. So for this presentation, I'm going to be recreating that video. And that video is simply about my favourite summoner classes. And for me, my love for summoners all started with the Clash of Clans Witch. Clash of Clans was one of my most played games growing up. And within that game, I thought the Witch was the absolute coolest character ever. I just loved the way she summoned little skeletons instead of attacking herself. I just thought it was awesome. Once I became a bit older, still probably like 13 years old, I started playing World of Warcraft, and within that, I absolutely fell in love with the Warlock class. The Warlock would summon a variety of demons, but my absolute favourite were the Imps. I've always been a sucker for little guys. But what I think absolutely cemented my love for the summoner was Terraria. Now I've played Terraria for at least 1,000 hours, and the video I made on Terraria, the Piss Challenge, was the first time ever I didn't play as a summoner. In the early days of Terraria, which is when I mostly played, the summoner class was more of a challenge than a full-fledged class. There was so little to it. But I used to just love starting a new character and rushing straight to the B armor. Honestly, some of my favourite gaming memories. Finally, here's a couple summoners I don't like. I think League of Legends has some of the worst summoners ever. They're just so lazy and the minions never work. It's been like 15 years and they just won't fix it. I didn't play Final Fantasy 14 much, I just didn't jive with it, but obviously trying the summoner, I could not believe how little summoning the summoner did. Like, I think in my 10-20 hours played, I did not summon a single thing. And finally, D&D. I think the idea of D&D summon is cool. I really liked the idea of summoning unbound demons I couldn't control, but every time I've ever tried to play it, the people I play with beg me not to. I don't know why, I've still never got to summon in D&D. People just really do not like summoners. This was a bit of a shit presentation, but I don't know, I just wanted to recreate my first video. At the very end of this video, I'll put in a snippet of my original audio. I sound so uncomfortable. Day 12 looked to be a very tough world, including a Garg, so I decided to play it safe with double time warp. It was going really smoothly and didn't take too much thought, until a zombie just fucking died. I was so confused and thought that I'd really fucked up. But looking at my lineup, none of these plants can even kill a zombie if I wanted to. After watching it back, it's obvious, but I had no idea the future Garg could kill zombies. That's really funny. Needless to say, this doesn't count as me failing a level, as it was a zombie that killed another zombie. You know, nothing to do with me. Day 13, and here it is. The biggest threat to the challenge yet, the All-Star Mech. I've been told from the very start of this challenge that this zombie will single-handedly make this challenge impossible. It can't be stunned by anything and it will waltz through any defensive wall. But I'm not ready to give up yet. I'm gonna throw absolutely every possible solution at the wall until something sticks. First thing I tried was the gum nut. It's a bit of an optimistic solution to the CC immune challenge, but the gum nut is my solution to like most of my life's problem anyway, so it's worth a try. And oh, this thing is actually stopped by the gum nut. And this zombie isn't CC immune at all. You guys have been stressing me out for weeks, and for what? This zombie is a huge letdown. I guess we're just bringing the gum nut from now on. Day 14 only permits us to spend 1500 sun, which can be quite a challenge for the pacifist run, as it usually involves us spamming a lot of the same plants. Luckily, we do have a bit of an infinite value engine that costs 0 sun in the reinforcement, which solves this level handedly, with a little tool nut support. I've described a lot of levels as our hardest level yet, but I think day 15 is outright impossible. The main issue, and maybe only issue, is that we have 3 Citrons to protect. We've beat levels similar to this before, but Citrons hit so much harder than the likes of the Pepper Pot. And the level literally starts with 3 zombies walking right in front of the Citrons. Like, I had some ambitious ideas of spamming Hypno Shrooms and Solar Sage to make them immune from damage, but the plants don't even come off cooldown before the first 3 zombies spawn. I think this is our first outright impossible level. I've made mention of a super secret technique that I'm going to try to beat the seemingly impossible level with after this challenge, but I don't think even that can solve this. I think unfortunately, for the first time ever in one of these challenges, I'm going to have to mark this level as impossible. Now I know that I have some disturbingly creative viewers out there, so if anyone can think of a solution, let me know in the comments. Day 16 is a conveyor belt, and day 17 doesn't let us pick our plants. Day 18 needs us to generate 6,000 sun. I don't know why I gave that so much emphasis when that sun goal is like 2/3 of a solo tomato. I love this little guy's face. Those chubby cheeks hide such a pure evil. Day 19 is another sun bomb level, and I took this one very slowly. At this point, I was still really butthurt about the last time I wasted time on this type of level, and I was able to beat this one without a single reset. Day 20 looks just as impossible as the Citron level, but we do have a bit more leeway on this one. It's similar to the Rutabaga level, which I was able to beat after a lot of attempts. I spent ages on this one. The main goal is to move this entire row backwards before they can kill anything. I've managed to move 1 or 2 plants back before, but an entire row of plants that shoot diagonally is miserable. There's so much micromanaging involved. Our first job is to stall the initial zombies that spawn. Ideally, I'd use a Hypno Shroom or a Solar Sage so that they don't die, but the first 3 zombies spawn in the same row, which really sucks. After an hour, I had my best attempt yet, and finally got most of the stars to the back row, although this attempt was only good because I had missed that a zombie had died anyway. But as I finally got the star fruits moved back, they were still hurting zombies at the very front of the lawn. I always wondered what the difference between the star fruit and the rutabaga was, and as it turns out, the rutabaga is just a more fair, honest plant. This guy sucks. I think this is another impossible level. Day 21 is one of them levels that give you 2 challenges that are so meager it doesn't really do a thing. No more than 15 plants on screen and we have to generate 5,000 sun. In this level, I finally realized why this world has been so much more bearable than the last one, despite an unending swarm of flying zombies. And it's just because these flying zombies are kind of slow. They're barely any faster than regular zombies, which makes slowing plants, especially the time warp, way better. To be clear, I don't think these zombies are underpowered, I just think the dragonfly zombie is absurdly busted. Day 22 was pretty easy, I just spammed the gumnut plant food. I wish I had more to say about this world, but during this playthrough, me and my Twitch chat had a Hatsune Miku marathon, which got this world's entire audio track deleted by Twitch. So I'm kind of just going off my admittedly porous memory. Day 23 doesn't let us spend any more than 2k sun, but we're easily able to set up our infinite value engine in that sun. Our last day of this world is one last sun bomb level. Again, these challenges aren't hard in the usual sense in this game. It's more akin to playing the board game Operation, where I'm just trying my hardest not to touch any of these suns with my mouse. And unfortunately, 10 minutes into this one, I blundered, which was so tilting, but was able to beat it a second time around.
Let's blow those whining women back to the Dark Ages right where they belong!
Day 1, and oh look, our old buddy's back. I always start these worlds with the trail mix set up because it's the only time it's usable at all. But for the second time in a row, I actually failed day 1. I was actually planning to limit myself to just one source of sun like in the nut challenge, but this challenge is drastically harder. In fact, after setting up a full row of sun nuts this time, I still lost. There's just way too many zombies for just walnuts to handle, so I had to use the suck and blow. In all, I spent 20 minutes just on day 1, a new personal rock bottom. Day 2 I ran it back with the suck and blow. After much consideration, I think purely thematically, Dark Ages has to be the best map in the game. It's so atmospheric, I really love this world. Day 3 and we still don't have a single gimmick zombie, unless the balding imp counts as a special zombie, so I just sort of picked one of our many options at random and swept. Day 4 is a conveyor belt level. Day 5 and we finally have our first new zombie in the Jester. A famously frustrating zombie that does diddly squat to us here. I can't think of a single plant that this stops for us, unless times get so rough that we break out the emergency ice pea. Day 6 was a plan your defense stage that I accidentally skipped over in my playthrough of this world. This is so weirdly early for a plan your defense stage, and as a result it was just a breeze. I brought the spearmint along for more sun, but we didn't even dent our sun reserve. I love the time warp so much. Day 7 is actually a weird step backwards, as there's once again no special zombie. At this point in this nauseating challenge, I've completely lost it. Listening back on myself as I edit these videos is actually painful. I'd also accidentally skipped day 8 as well, since this challenge has me in a fucking haze, but luckily this one was just a given plant stage. I was so excited for day 9, it's the alchemy challenge which presents a real threat to us, but in a way that seems kind of fun to try and beat. Unfortunately, first try I found a super powerful and kind of lame interaction. See, when a zombie steps on one of these potions, they get a buff, a large boost to either their speed, damage or HP. But weirdly, the time warp removes these buffs, kind of trivializing the stage. It's not super free as the potions do respawn, and if a zombie steps on multiple of the speed ups, we're in trouble. But even then, I'm pretty sure the sap fling ignores the speed boost and just slows it all the same anyway. I can't really tell, to be honest. Day 10 is yet another conveyor belt level. Day 11 and here it is, the wizard zombie. This time around, I obviously had the foresight of knowing this demon was coming up, so I had planned out some strategies. My main plan was to spam gumnut plant food, as this is one of the only ways to stop the wizard sheepening. For some reason, I thought that the tile turnip was the way to go, but just like every time I've ever used it, it fell apart very quickly. Though that didn't stop me from attempting it 5 times. Eventually I remembered that instead of dedicating 4 slots to the most intricate busted sun setup, just to fund 10,000 sun worth of tile turnips and power lilies, I could just use a singular reinforcement which is more powerful and costs 0 sun. Another major part of my plan was using the infinites, which I strictly remember blocking the sheep bolts, but I was wrong about that, they don't. Nevertheless, after a good few attempts, we brute force it with gumnut. Day 12 was a truly exhausting experience. We're tasked with prolonging the life of 5 mushrooms that are imminently drying up and withering away, like a grandparent that hasn't finished writing their will yet. It was obvious from the start that time warp was the way to go of this level, and it did a perfect job at stalling the zombies. The real issue was 1, stopping the shrooms from disappearing, and 2, stopping the shrooms from making the zombies disappear. It was easy to do once I could build up the rhythm, timing power lilies and refreshing time warp to make room for victimless plant foods. Finally, we can utilize the Boingsetter's ability to rid the screen of gravestones, giving us sun and plant food without killing any random zombie, entirely for no reason. After about an hour, I'd finally got all the zombies on screen and all the puff shrooms sheeped, and I put my hands behind my head to relax like a proper dipshit, and this happened. No! Oh, come on! Not my proudest moment, but after 20 more minutes I was able to clear the level with the Solar Sage. This was a rough level. Day 13 was a very welcome conveyor belt level. Now day 14 was something special, as I found what I considered to be maybe the saddest plant in the entire game. It's the Sunbeam level, and I thought that I had a way to beat this from the get-go. My plan was to loop time warps and ice blooms to do an infinite amount of small damage that never kills the zombies, creating a sort of infinite sun generator. But not only did the ice bloom give basically no sun at all, the time warp removes the sunbeam status. That's weak. So the plan was to create a sort of pain farm, a way to stall zombies and deal as much damage as possible without ever killing the zombies, so we can reset them with the time warp and repeat. Very pacifist, I know. I thought long and hard about what was the perfect plant to use for this, and I landed on the electricity. I thought this was a genius idea and a really cool way to utilize one of the most forgotten plants in the game. And oh my god, is this plant pathetic. Just look at this absolute tickle fest. I worked out it's generating about 5 sun per 10 seconds. I was actually flabbergasted. This level would be twice as easy if I could just use the imitator on the sunbeam, but frustratingly we're forced to bring the Gravebuster, which blocks us from doubling the sunbeam. I attempted this level for hours and hours, and we came to one unfortunate bottleneck. And it's going to have to go on the maybe impossible list for now. The issue is there are so many ways to do little bits of damage. But it's not enough to just do a little bit of damage and refresh it. You need to do enough damage to refund fully the cost of the sunbeam, otherwise you can't go on infinitely. The solution is to just use the sunbeam on a very tanky zombie and then deal a lot of damage to that zombie. But there is like 50 zombies on screen here. It's impossible to pick out just the good ones. I think our super secret strategy at the end of this challenge will beat it, but it's going to be tough. I'm also moving that Citron level from the last world to that list, because you guys had some pretty crazy solutions that might just work. Day 15 we did first try of the Suck and Blow, but it was an absolute clencher. I thought the piano zombie music was bad, but at least there was only ever one piano blurting. This constant bleating of 20 different sheep was truly mind-numbing. Day 16 was the introduction to the King Zombie, one of the most nothing zombies in this whole challenge, although he did crush my garlic. Day 17 was unfortunately a nothing burger. Again, I was excited for these levels, but at least we get to do this world's micro presentation. For this world's presentation, we'll be going over the history of Shagrot, as in the little sprite. You may remember this guy. This was my first ever sprite, and it was actually for a university project. At university, I had to learn how to use the entire Adobe suite, and for the video related ones, Premiere Pro, After Effects, we made videos. I've always liked channels that had their own mascot, so I wanted my own. I've always been a goblin guy. If there's ever an option to play a goblin in the game, I'm playing the goblin. So I wanted my own little goblin mascot for these projects. And it's kind of a funny story about how it came to be. I had never commissioned an artist before, and I didn't know how to find the right guy. But one day when I was browsing r/Shyvana mains, which is a dragon themed League of Legends character, I came across the artist One Trick Dragon. I absolutely adored his art style. I fell in love with it instantly. I needed someone that could do a goblin. And I don't know why, I just thought this art style would really translate well into a small goblin. So I reached out immediately and he accepted. And he even did my character very cheap because at the time I had 0 subscribers on YouTube. There was one tiny issue with this arrangement, however. It turns out this guy almost exclusively draws not safe for work art. I don't mean like casually or borderline, I mean like full blown not safe for work. But I had only seen his safe for work stuff when I reached out to him. And I cannot stress this enough, please do not seek out this person's social medias unless you're over 18. And that's kind of the tricky part of this situation. I loved this guy's art and really wanted to give him his due credit, especially since he did it so cheap for me at the time. But I was advised by people in the industry to not link his social medias in my description. And I understand why. I can't be linking not safe for work art when there is potentially young people watching my videos. But it felt bad. It felt really bad. So this presentation's kind of the credit that's long overdue. Now I've been asked a lot why I changed art style, and it's actually nothing to do with what I just said. I met Caramelek through Twitch. He used to just draw me random pieces of art for free, including the sun nut. He was the mastermind behind that. And we very quickly become good friends. When I got my first ever sponsorship, Gamersubs, I decided to do a paid commission with Caramelec to get some sprites to do a little ad read. And I just fell in love with what Caramelec made. He absolutely smashed it. I loved this super simple goblin he made, and I instantly knew this was my new character. This is why my character wears that stupid I Heart Anime Honkers t-shirt. I don't want to be known as the Gooner guy. It was just originally for a Gamersubs sponsorship. And from that point on, this kind of just became my character. Day 18 doesn't let us pick our plants. But day 19 is an all-timer, defending the magnet shrooms. The sweet potato makes this level so much more doable, and in fact we did manage to beat this one on the first try, with a casual 26 sheep on screen. This is one of my absolute favourite levels in the game, because through this level I actually met my channel artist Caramelec. This level was so harder than that challenge that Caramelec, who was lurking in the Twitch chat, decided to draw up a battle plan for this level, and that's how we started speaking, and very soon he became my channel artist.
Hey, you guys mind if I put in my mixtape?
For the first time in a very embarrassing amount of worlds, I actually beat day 1 first try. That really shouldn't be an accomplishment. Day 2 debuts the punk zombie. I've long given up on using nuts, so he's not that bad. My pool of usable plants has shrunken to a tiny scrote of options. Luckily, these guys get hard countered by the sapling. Also, I've not had music in at least the last 3 worlds or so, but this world seems to be a coin flip whether I have any sound at all each level. Extremely annoying when you have to spend tens of hours in each world. Day 4, and I've realised I have extremely few opportunities left in this challenge to bring out my beloved garlic, so I tried to make it work here. And it did, but it gets totally countered by the punk zombie. I used sweet potatoes to maneuver them around, and I did beat this level first try of this strat, but it was not worth the hassle. Day 5, and it's another one of these obscenely difficult protection levels. Luckily we only have 2 damaging plants to protect, and they're short range ones at that. Definitely doable, but it'll be finicky. First step is to move the troublemakers to the very back of the stage, which I managed to do in a pretty timely fashion first try. Having to protect these nuts seems like a benefit at first, but they just get knocked back towards the fat beats by the punks. Luckily, Gumnut sorts that issue quite nicely. Lastly, and the most difficult part, I need to stall an entire level's worth of zombies in the very center of the board so that I can move endangered plants to the back with no casualties, either from the fat beats dealing damage or accidental escape route explosions. I was able to gum up everything very quickly, and I got the beats pretty fast to the back, but it was actually the walnut that was the problem here. I didn't know off the top of my head what the trigger radius was for the escape route, so I played it extra safe and waited ages for them to finish the gum, hurricaned them to the back of the room, and quickly moved the nut away. For the first time ever, I really applied myself to this level and beat it first time. That was a really good feeling. Day 6 is a conveyor belt level that shows off the celery stalker. In my massive ranking video, I repeatedly referred to him as the bamboo stalker, which you guys railed me for. And I mean, to my credit, that was a 4-hour-long video that took 3 months to make, and that was my only major mistake, other than accidentally deleting the citron part. For the record, I put him around 60th. Day 7 was a blur. I literally have no idea what was happening. It was a laggy, glitchy mess that sunders the eyes. To be totally fair to the game though, I do think this was more likely my tech struggling in this British heatwave. Day 8, and I'm getting really bored of the time warp. I decided to try out the Gumnut strat again, as it's just as strong as the time warp looping, albeit countered by much more zombies. But it does have this extreme downside of forcing you to wait an additional 10 minutes at the end of each level while the zombies chew their way out of gum gel. This really does stack up over the tens and hundreds of levels that you do. Day 9's a pre-selected plant level, and thank fuck, because I could not be asked to deal with this front sunflower setup. It's way too faffy for me. Day 10 is also a brainbuster, but day 11 is a third brainbuster. I'm not too fussed about this, I am exhausted of this challenge, but we power on regardless. Day 12 introduces the Garg. I've never actually done a normal playthrough of these later worlds, and I feel like this Garg must be a real watershed moment for casual playthroughs. One-shotting plants from across the lane is wildly frustrating, but there's just nothing you can do about time warp spam. I also forgot to mention the rollerblade zombies here now. It's whatever, it's funny looking when you time warp it. Day 13 brings the microphone zombie, who I thought wouldn't be a big deal at all, but he is surprisingly annoying. His spin attack suggests that he'd deal damage in front of him like a circle, but it's honestly more of a pointy triangle that reaches one more tile than you always suspect. Nothing major, but quite annoying. Day 14 is yet another pre-selected plant level, but since we had like 6 of these already, I decided to give this one a go. The time warp is just such an okay plant without the imitator. My biggest takeaway from this challenge so far is that the Imitator is probably the strongest plant in the entire game. This level was obviously not doable. Day 15 is another one of them crazy endangered plants level, but this time we have to protect an entire row of these frigs. It wasn't too difficult to move everything to the back, since gumnuts are a perfect way to temporarily store stuff at the front of the lawn. It was moving everything to the back of the lawn which was way more challenging. I decided to do it one lane at a time. I gambled on the fact that the fat beet probably can't kill anything in only 2 squares, and I was correct this time. With one row clear, it was easy to start going through lanes one at a time, moving beets to the back corner of the stage. It was looking perfect until zombies somehow broke through their gum early and got into beet range. I frantically rushed to move the beet to the back, and I cut it extremely close, and luckily we only got away with a couple missing arms. The escape route is undoubtedly one of the MVPs of this challenge, another ridiculous level taken down first try. Day 16 is a conveyor belt level, but I don't mind this one, I earned it. Day 17 is filled with these imps. This guy is not the punk zombie, get out of it. Day 18 brings forth the breakdown zombie, notoriously my least favourite zombie in the game. Someone in chat warned me of this zombie and I scoffed at them. I assumed it would be nothing major, just another gumnut target, but oh my god, this guy is the worst. This zombie did nothing in the nut challenge because pretty much every gimmick zombie is nothing in the face of the exploding nut. But when you group up these zombies with your stalling method of choice, they act like those Hot Wheels spinny booster things and launch zombies all across the stage. Gods, these zombies were annoying. This level took a lot of attempts because of these little shits. Day 19 is yet another conveyor belt, but I didn't mind this one because we got to use the electric blueberry, one of the greatest to ever do it. I fucking love the electric blueberry. Day 20 was very dull, but that's fine because I've got a banger PowerPoint for you today. For this week, I'll be covering the Great Potato Drama, aka outing my girlfriend. I love jacket potatoes, possibly my favourite meal of all time. I've started working out a lot more and I need to eat better, so I've started eating more jacket potatoes. I swear by tuna and cheese, but beans and cheese or chili and cheese are also great. Now what's annoying is my girlfriend hates jacket potatoes, and I never normally eat them because of this. But she started working out with me, so she's caved in and agreed to have jacket potatoes with me. I never understood why she didn't like jacket potatoes. Jacket potatoes are like Subway. If you hate them that much, you're probably just having the wrong toppings. But then I realised, my girlfriend's from the north of England and they just eat backwards up there. So she's probably just having stupid northern toppings on her jacket potatoes. So I asked her, and you would not believe what she told me she ate on her potatoes. Rice, potato salad, and spam. I cannot fathom a worse combination of toppings to have on jacket potatoes. No wonder she didn't like them. Long story short, she had normal toppings on her spuds and she loved it. Let me know in the comments what you have on your jacket potatoes, and if they're remotely as bad as what my girlfriend has, you're getting banned from my channel. Day 21 is a flower line level, and man do I have an unexpected hero for this one. This is a level beaten in 3 parts. Firstly and most simply, we get to the end of the level. An easy task if it wasn't for those meddling breakdancers just boosting zombies straight to the flowers. That was very annoying. Next, we convert all these zombies to a religion of your choice. In my head, it's Jared Leto's weird desert sex religion. Then, all we have to do is clear the gargs. We know that cauliflower can do this, but in an attempt to use as many plants possible in this challenge, I elected for the teleportato mind, bringing the garg straight in front of the lawnmower, 2 for 1. Awesome feeling. Day 22 and it's just more sludge. I was absolutely dreading this world, knowing that these zombies are some of the hardest to deal with. But like over half this world is brainbusters, it's ridiculous. Day 23 and we have our last zombie of the world, the arcade zombie. Truthfully, I didn't expect much from this zombie, as instant kill zombies just haven't mattered in a long time. In fact, instant kill zombies really do suffer this critical mass issue, where once you fill every world with zombies that instant death touch plants, you just don't even think about it anymore. You just no longer use plants that required getting touched. But the arcade zombie was a nightmare for a much different reason. These arcade machines that they push spawn these really charming little pixel zombies. And whilst we can just time warp away the pixel zombies, we can't actually move the machines. And this means no matter how much we teleport zombies back to the front of the lawn, they continue to spawn zombies at the front of the lawn, throwing off our rhythm. This is actually a huge problem for us, but I did have one crazy idea. Was the Boing Setter's weird destruction gimmick that makes no sense strategically, thematically, or botanically finally a key part of our strategy? I mean, it kind of was last world of the graves, but that was more of a luxury. This time, it was instrumental to our victories here. And thank God, because I just love the design of this plant. Truly, the Boing Setter is one of the best modern design plants. I adore it. Day 24 is a plan your defense. And whilst I know it's not exactly breaking the mold, the Sap Walk of Shame is just so effective here. I always bring the spearmint to these because I think it's just a fun interaction, but most of the time we just don't need the extra sun. But this time it came in really clutch. This level was a nasty free waver and went on for ages. I almost did this one on the first try, but got fricked up nasty by the stupid spinny blokes several times. Day 25 is drastically easier than the last, with only one wave. I'll just never understand why the game does this. Day 26, I gave a single attempt because wow, this one is not happening. Protection levels are already the hardest, but we have about 10 seconds here to react. It's just not happening. I do think, however, we can probably beat this one with my super forbidden technique, but you'll have to wait a bit longer to find out about that. Day 27, conveyor belt level. Day 28, and who the fuck is this? I genuinely have no recollection of this zombie whatsoever. I think this might be a contender for the least used zombie in this game. Like, he seriously only appears in like 2 or 3 levels. The Dragon Imp comes to a mind as a zombie used less. It's only 1 level in the Dark Ages, but they use him a fair bit in modern day. Let me know in the comments if you can think of a zombie used less than the Boombox zombie. Day 29, and again, it's just a much slower level with only 2 waves. I could imagine the Boombox zombie would be supremely annoying in a normal playthrough, but it does little to stop time warps. Day 30 should have been a real challenge. This level does not hold back on the zombies. It throws out an insane amount of every single gimmick zombie, including like 4 Gargs, and we're only able to defend it with 15 plants. But for some reason, the plant tracker just wasn't working. It stayed at 15 the entire time. I think one of the most fascinating things about the pacifist challenge is that the game is just not built to run this many zombies, and the game keeps breaking in such random ways. Day 31, the last challenge of this world, given plants. How fitting.
Watch out, here we go. Prehistoric dinosaurs aren't extinct anymore. See 'em fight, hear a roar. Watch out, cause they're right next door.
The first level of this world was a new record of time spent on day 1. I'm so determined to beat these day 1s with just nut spam, and this caused me to take like 4 full attempts of this level. I think that's partly due to me becoming a senile old man at this point though. Day 2, I bust out the garlics and it goes down quick. From my admittedly porous memory, I think the suck and blow fares a pretty good chance in this world, which is pretty cool. Day 3 is a conveyor belt level. This world has drastically less of these than like the last 5 or so worlds, which I used to love, but now it just fills me with dread. God, I wish I picked a less soul-crushing challenge to do. Day 5, and the cracks are already starting to show for our dear friend Garlic. My memory was indeed incorrect. I love this plant so fucking much, and I want to use it so badly. But we're now 1 dinosaur in, and this strategy's already wank. In day 5, I tried so hard to make the double infinite spam thing work, but I ended up just wasting half an hour for no reason. It's fine if you just use the time warp to carry, but then it's not infinite spam, you know. Out of pure frustration, I ended up blitzing the level with our strongest strategy. Day 6, and I caved in. I went back to time warp spam, the strongest strat available to us, and kind of the only thing carrying this challenge at this point. And it just kind of doesn't work in this world. The issue is that the dinosaurs patrol the first few rows, so upon being time warped back, they're sent into the loving jump kick of a dinosaur and launched right back to the front of the lawn. It still works for now, I did beat the level, but with just these 2 dinosaurs causing havoc, this was already a struggle. I just don't think the strategy is going to work in this world. Day 7 is a conveyor belt level. Day 8 introduced one of my all-time favourite PvZ2 plants, the Perf Shroom. I'm guessing that's his name, I don't actually know. Chat and I debated long and hard whether I can actually use this plant, and despite the answer being a resounded yes, I chose not to use it. Sure, it's the dinosaur that's doing the killing, but I still influenced the dinosaur to do so. It is such a shame because I just love this plant, it's so cool. This is quite annoying because this world is really balanced around taking the Perf Shroom, and as such, this challenge becomes way harder. Day 9 is a given plant level. Day 10 was going pretty easy until this little shit showed up. It's actually not too hard to deal with, truth be told. It just means I need to keep a pocket hurricane on hand. And that's not nothing, we're very strapped for seed slots at this point. Also, I did day 10 twice for some reason. I think my brain is actually a fine green mush at this point. Day 11, and for now, the time warp has officially given in. There is never not a dinosaur on screen at this point. So our ace plant is completely done in. I took this time to try out most of our strategies. For once, there are no instant kill zombies in this world, so walls are actually usable. Except this little shit does so much damage, it might as well be an instant kill plant. Suck and Blow still doesn't stand a chance, but I do have one unshakable carry. Once again, I come crawling back to the Gumnut, perhaps one of the best plants in the entire game, and he sweeps day 11 no problem. Day 12 is one of the most extreme challenges I've had to do in a while. Can't lose more than 6 plants. I've done levels like this before by putting most of my plants in one lane, a modified Suck and Blow of sorts, but it just doesn't work here for 2 main reasons. Firstly, there's a Garg in this level, which just sort of tramples over the Garlics and Aloes. Normally you can just plant around this, but it comes in a random lane. Secondly, and more annoyingly, are the Stegosauruses that flick zombies into our vital lane. I spent hours and hours on this level, but I just couldn't beat it. I didn't even think my super secret technique would be able to beat this level, except I came back to this level for one last attempt after I beat the rest of this world, and I had a miracle run. Instead of funneling zombies into one lane, I decided to shield the vital lane with garlics and stall every other lane with gumnut and infinite plant food. This is a risky strategy as it means I can only afford to lose one plant other than the reinforcements. I thought this plan was flawless as the infinites were successfully holding back all the lanes, but I forgot the Gargs can actually permanently kill infinites. And the Garg randomly spawned in a lane with 2 infinites, meaning the run was over. Now I'm going to have to apologise for my stupid mini Shagrot blocking the actual biblical miracle that's about to happen. But just as I was moving my mouse over to quit the level, literally milliseconds away, this hero raptor appears out of nowhere and kicks the Garg over the first infinite, winning me this level and saving me hours and hours of grinding. I'm not even joking when I say this fully changed my opinions on the dinosaurs. I hated how hard they were making this, but this sole, heroic raptor made me really appreciate the dinos. Day 13 was the start of the most annoying trend in this entire world, maybe the entire challenge. This level was nothing special, the perfect candidate for a PowerPoint, except a fair few zombies just spawned late. I made it to the final wave, let the mowers rip, just the same as always, and more zombies just started walking out. I'm not using the boing setter or even the reinforcement. These zombies are just trolling me for the love of the game. This wasn't a hard level, but because of this glitch, it just cost me an extra 15 minutes, and that really stacks up. Day 14 is a pre-selected plant stage. Day 15 is a protection level where we get to protect our good old friend. This was a real embarrassing level, I'm not gonna lie. Something about the way the dinosaurs would kick zombies into the back half of the plant, it just wouldn't register in my brain, they were invisible to me. These little shits would be chewing for a full 30 seconds and I'd completely ignore it. That cost me a lot of time, but I did end up sweeping this level with the suck and blow. Day 16 is a conveyor belt level. Day 17 and I finally accepted that the time warp just doesn't work anymore. The sheer amount of dinos completely render it useless. This means that I mostly need to rely on gumnut spam now. Now don't get me wrong, it's an incredibly powerful plant. Dare I say it's probably my signature plant at this point. But it staples on an extra 5 minutes at the end of every level I have to waste watching these dipshits just chew their way out of gumjow. Day 18. One day after completely committing to giving up on the time warp, we're introduced to the strongest dinosaur of the lot, the T-Rex. This guy gives a crazy speed boost to the zombies, literally slingshotting them to the very front of the lawn. Way too fast for pretty much any other plant to handle, except for one, the sap fling. The interaction here is actually really weird. Now don't get me wrong, it's not a great counter to the T-Rex. It attacks so slow that the zombies make it halfway to the lawn before they get slowed. But slows are a bit counterintuitive in PvZ. Instead of reducing the speed of a zombie by whatever percent, they instead set the zombie's speed to whatever percent. And this has 2 quirks. Firstly, it means that slows don't stack. If a zombie is slowed by the Stallia, adding sap to it won't do anything, as their speed's just being set to the same number. Secondly, and relevant to what we're doing here, it means that speed boosts, no matter how quick, are just outright negated, as the new boosted speed is set to the lower speed. The last and most frustrating weirdness here is that the T-Rex speed boost is a permanent effect. So while the sap does slow it nice and cleanly, as soon as it's warped back, they're right back to track and fielding it. This is so weird because I can't think of any other effects that survive the time warp. For example, the Dark Age elixirs and the Sunbeam's effect are both permanent effects, yet they're both stripped away by the time warp. Irrespective of all this though, we beat this level first time. Day 19 is a conveyor belt level. I really wish that instead of making me play a glorified premium plant advert, I just wish they did a Hypnotoad type thing like spend £5, spend £5 and get it over with. Day 20 is a sun production level, but with a weirdly insignificant target. You don't actually need to think about this one in the slightest. One row of sunflowers does this no problem. Day 21, and I realized that the gumnut plant food can't actually miss zombies, so it works really well against the T-Rex. This is crazy surprising to me as every time I use this, it spills half its fucking load off the screen. This day also introduces one of the most forgotten zombies in the entire game. Man, I don't even know what to call this thing. The caveman zombie? They're all kind of cavemen. The Neanderthal zombie? I don't know, it's so forgettable. I just looked this guy's name up and it's so stupid. It completely clashes with the naming convention of this game. It's really dumb. I'm not even going to tell you what it is so that you guys can guess in the comments and then be as frustrated as I was when you actually googled it. Anyways, what does this zombie do? Well, in a world where the zombies literally do nothing, this guy somehow does the most nothing. How is that possible, you say? Well, this zombie actually does have an ability, unlike every other zombie here. It has an innate immunity to being pushed back. If you say so, champ. Day 22 might have been the easiest plan your defense level yet. It felt difficult because there were so many pterodactyls eating my saplings, but that plant has a lightning fast recharge. And by starting with double spearmint, I just spammed the shit out of every plant and I still had change left over. Day 23 was a snoozer, so it's PowerPoint time, and man have I got a good one for you. Now this week's PowerPoint is honestly more of a rant, but I am just so fed up with scalpers in Pokemon. Now I know that in the world of hot takes this is a cold plunge in Joe Rogan's bathtub, but now that it's affecting me, it's an issue. See, I'm finally in a spot in life where I have a bit of disposable income, and despite being a huge card game guy, I basically play all of them. I've never really opened packs, I'm just not much of a gambler, but Pokemon just released a Nostalgia Bait set for Generation 5, my absolute favourite game of all time, so I need to crack open some packs. But much to my dismay, every store I went to in a 20-mile radius of my house was sold out within hours. Better yet, I can't find anything online that's not marked up. Now scalping's turbo lame, we all know this, but I want to dispute some common arguments for scalping. Now it's going to sound a bit like I'm shouting at you guys, but I know my audience isn't this dull. I'm just so fed up of seeing these comments online. Scalping is no different to retail. Sure, that sounds true if you're not willing to give it a second's thought, but what a retailer does is act as a middleman between the creator of the product and the customer. It's a major role in the distribution of product. What a scalper does instead is buy from the retailer and act as a second, more and ugly retailer who wears stupid hats and has a receding hairline. They have no purpose in the supply chain and they just make everything worse for everyone. Everyone needs to make money. This is an unfortunate fact of life. Just a couple years back I was served an eviction notice, and I know that feeling of wanting to do anything to make money. But that's just not what this is. If you look at the people doing this shit, it's always those grotesque investor bros. The same people that manage to make the coolest shoes in the world lame. What you can't deny, no matter how much you despise the idea of Pokemon investing, is that Pokemon cards hold their value like nothing else. It's actually like the modern day gold, but it's still lame regardless. The early bird gets the worm. No, the unemployed loser ruins the hobby for everyone. And that's all I've got to say. If you're a Pokemon fan or just enjoy me talking about Pokemon, I'm actually working on a Pokemon channel right now. No videos just yet, but they're in production. Link in the description if you want to pre-subscribe and make me feel good. Day 24 was super easy, no stress at all. Just Gumnut spam for 15 minutes straight, then a chill 5 minutes of zombies eating their way out of Gumnut Jowl as usual, then boom. 3 new zombies phase into existence, losing me the level. I'm like 8 hours into this world at this point, so I just decided to flick them into the right lane. Except I also fucked that up. I'm not the gaming legend you guys describe me as in my shower fantasies. The dinosaurs have to be the cause for this. I've spammed Gumnuts in every world and this has never happened. If anyone has a theory as to why this is plaguing me, I'm all ears. Day 25 introduces the Ankylosaurus, my favourite dinosaur growing up. I love its design here, it has such a pleasant smile, but its muted, almost realistic colour scheme really clashes hard with the other dinos, especially the T-Rex. It really sticks out. He's not too hard to deal with as I'm just able to spam double Gumnut on the second row and catch every zombie with ease. Day 26 is one of these levels. Mold colonies are always such a jump scare to me because I always confuse them with the flower lines and I overestimate how hard it's going to be. I kind of have to use time warp shenanigans as the Ankylosauruses will shoot zombies straight onto the second tile. But I also started using infinites as saplings alone just don't cut the mustard when zombies are being polted right into the fray. I didn't realise this at first, but the infinites actually body block zombies being polted to the front, and they're just a nice reoccurring wall. This level wasn't too hard. For day 27, I borrowed the infinite idea from the last day. It's a plan your defense level, and the setup looked like this. The front line is to block the Ankylosauruses, and it worked a charm, beating this level first try, if you exclude the 4 restarts I had to do because I kept accidentally killing imps. Day 28 was a super easy level that took no thought at all. I did get briefly scared for a moment as a zombie materialized 5 minutes after the last wave, but it's fine, he was only joking. Day 29 was a given plants level. I just want to use this time to apologize for sounding a bit weird in this world. I'd just come back from a dentist appointment and they accidentally cut my tongue up bad. I'm finding it very hard to speak. Day 30 was a 25-minute, 4-wave long slog. It was brutal, dude, just waiting for all the zombies to eat their way out of gum just to have these dudes show up at the end. I was at my limit at this point and I didn't even have enough gold to help them change their mind. So I had to sit down for another half a fucking hour on a level with 0 difficulty, just putting Gumnuts down blindly. What a waste of time. This whole world has been ruined by this annoyance. With day 31 being a given plants level, that brings Jurassic Marsh to an end.
Wow, I love my friends and I love my God and I love my country and God bless America, I guess. What else can you say?
In a way, we're all victims to life's ceaseless need to repeat our worst moments. And for me, the lowest moment of my life was when I lost all the footage for my Big Wave Beach Nut Challenge run. It was soul crushing to have to play the hardest world in the game a second time to collect footage. And of course, me being the pitiful moron that I am, I lost the footage for the first half of this world a second time round. Truly, this is a cursed world. Day 1 was business as usual. At least it was until I accidentally created a weirdly buoyant walnut. Even with this floaty little fella, this was a hard level. We had to spam walnuts like crazy to hold them off. I don't really remember what happened the first time round on day 2, but during my second run through of the game trying to scrap together footage, I made a kind of profound discovery. The suck and blow technique kind of hard counters this world. Like, actually trivialized it. Now this is only the early game, but I have a feeling towards the end, this might still be pretty viable. Day 3 is another one of them advert conveyor belts, and this is the saddest one of them all. I can't believe they locked my guy behind a £1 paywall. What is even the point? Well, the point is to get people comfortable with the idea of spending money on the game as an icebreaker of sorts, but that's not very fun to think about. Day 4 is another strong garlic carry. At this stage of the game, the only difficulty you're having is these flash floods that spawn imps halfway down the lane, but we can just blow them away. I do wonder what the implication of zombies wielding Greek flags is though. Day 5 is the pea shooter special. Something really necessary this late into the game. Day 6 limits us to just 2 plants, something this world really likes to do. We're given a sun producer and a walnut, which does help us a lot, so I go with the sweet potato and the gumnut for this one. And it works a charm. The gumnut is all but unusable in this world as you can't use it on lily pads, and even if you do find a spot to use it, the water washes it away. In fact, to my knowledge, the water is the only thing in the game that can instantly kill gum. I placed 2 sweet potatoes like this, which circumvents the need for garlics. I'm only now realizing this version's way superior to the garlic setup, as it doesn't crumble to a single instant kill zombie. But garlics are the sickest plant to ever do it, so they're staying. Day 7 introduces us to the first special zombie in the world, which is actually really late. It's the snorkel zombie, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this next bit, but holy shit, this zombie is the bane of this world for this run. So much worse than the other gimmick zombies in fact. This might be the worst zombie of the challenge so far. Now I know what you're thinking, how is it even possible when these freaks exist? But I swear to God, I lost every single level in this world to these guys. I have easily over 100 failed attempts here due to this one zombie. This water must be the sweat and tears of the Greek gods, because it makes these snorkel zombies immune to fucking everything. To my knowledge, this is the only zombie that is immune to the time warp. That in itself isn't the end of the world. We've already beaten some difficult worlds without the time warp. But in this world specifically, we're already down one of our ace players and we can't afford to lose another one. We have access to a single plant that can deal with the snorkel zombie, and that's the hurricane, which is a huge part of the reason why the suck and blow is just so effective in this world. But I didn't know that the first time around, so this level took me a good few hours. Day 8 is a much deserved breather, and day 9 was a mold colony level. This pattern looks cool, but it's so unsubstantial it's barely a challenge. I just planted my sunflowers like this and it was fine. Though there was 4 waves, so this was still challenging. Day 10 is a conveyor belt level, and I love this one as it gives you the bowling bulbs and puts them next to the regular pea shooter, as this is like the one plant in the game that it can outshine in damage. Day 11 is another 2-slot challenge, and I run it back with the sweet potato gumnut combo. This time we have surfers to deal with, and they do make it much harder, but we barely clutch it up. I have a really cool trick for these surfers that will come up later though. Day 12 is a plan your defense level, and we beat it with this setup again. Fear not, dear viewer, as this strategy falls apart very quickly as the tougher zombies start coming. An interesting facet of a plan your defense level in this world is that because the water blocks plants, we can start the world by spamming 4 or 5 spearmints and get like all the sun we'll ever need. This also allows you to plant spike rocks on lily pads, which is just so wrong. I assumed this was a glitch, so I tested it out, but no, you can just do this. Why can you put a spike rock on a lily pad but not a gumnut? All it does is make the spike weed edible. Day 13 was weird. At first the 20 plant limitation seems laughable, but when you consider that every plant needs to be on a lily pad, it basically means that you only get to use 2 rows. Luckily for us, once again, the suck and blow is a very space efficient strategy. This level also requires you to generate 2000 sun, which again seems ultra insignificant, but it means that you can't skimp out too hard on the sunflowers. Day 14 doesn't let you pick your plants. I hate that I established that I cover every single level in these videos. 1, because now everyone's doing it and it's boring. But 2, I end up saying this level doesn't let you pick your plants like 60 fucking times a video. Day 15 is the first major run ender of the world. We need to protect a row of potato mines. This is the first level where I have the original footage. I spent about 3 hours on this level and I just couldn't do it. Surviving this onslaught was already tough enough, but I think it might actually be impossible due to the snorkels. It just makes it so you have virtually no time to move all the mines around. There was this one attempt where I aligned everything perfect and it was looking like we were going to win, and then this happened. Just fantastic. So I just gave up on this level. But now, me and you have the hindsight of knowing that the sweet potato kind of solos this world, so I gave it a go. And it was easy, legitimately did it first time with no fault. I know we don't have the real threats of this world unlocked yet, but I can't believe the performance of the sweet potato here. Day 16 is a mental breather before the hell starts. Day 17, Octobloke is here. And this zombie is difficult to deal with in a normal playthrough of the game, where you can actually clear the little shits. But in this challenge, we're slightly cream cheesed. You can't blow them away and you can't warp them back in time. You can't even grave bust them. After hours of digging and research, I can only find two possible ways for us to deal with these octopuses in this challenge. The first of which is an ultra niche interaction that I'm willing to bet none of you know about. Of all the instant use plants in the game that don't deal damage, the one that can actually kill octopuses is the hot potato, if it's level 5. The only plant that can get us out of this slimy situation is a plant that I claim to be one of the strongest plants in the entire game, and a plant that fell short time and time again during this challenge. But this time, the Boingsettia is finally able to prove her might and carry a world. Not only does the Boingsettia aid in pushing all the zombies back, she clears every octopus on the map, and the surfboards, which is actually pretty big as well. With a new ace up my wizard sleeve, we crush this level. Day 8 is the Guacodile tutorial. I recently had guac for the first time. It's fairly rare in the UK, and I became obsessed with it. Like every other day, me and my girlfriend were buying rotisserie chickens and making guac and chicken sandwiches. Craziest sandwich I've ever had. I love guac. Day 19 is yet another 2-slot level. I actually think this level might be close to impossible with only 2 slots, but I do allow myself to purchase the 3rd slot in these levels. And with the Boingsettia to keep our sweet potatoes safe from octopuses and surfboards, this level wasn't too bad. Day 20, I go all in with our solo carry overlord, the Boingsettia. Then I remember why I have a love-hate relationship with this plant. Love that it's a cool, non-lethal plant that inspired this whole challenge. Love its visual design. Seriously one of the best modern plants. Hate that when I beat a stage, octo zombies will start spawning 5 whole minutes after the level's ended. There's just no way zombies are getting pushed back 5 minutes worth of distance. It's absurd. That's like 30 times the length of the entire map. That has to be a stupid bug, and if it is, that bug has cost me hours of my life. Day 21's the homing thistle showcase. In my mega ranking video, I called this plant transphobic as a replacement to the cattail. And I was asked to explain my reason for this easily over 100 times. So here you go, here's my official explanation. It was a joke. Day 22 brings us the last zombie of this world, the fishing zombie. This guy is the absolute worst, but we do have access to the infinite, which is the biggest counter to him. What I'm more concerned about is that I think I'm once again the victim of the Mandela effect. I could have sworn PopCap made a great big deal out of a brand new zombie that wore a raincoat and had the ability to resist electric plants. Like, I vividly remember that being added to this world, but it's nowhere to be seen. It's weird. Day 23 was a little tease. You need to protect these disturbingly cute banana freaks. I love them. The difficulty of this level is actually really unique. This isn't too bad of a setup. Normally these levels are hard because we have to somehow make room for zombies to pass through. The real difficulty of this level comes from the fact that we're given 3 very high damage AoE splash plants. And because of that, the zombies are way amped up. There is just every kind of horrible zombie and gargs out the wazoo. I was so close to beating this level first time until I panicked and accidentally clicked on the banana launcher. Brutal mistake. I did beat it on the clapback though. Day 25 gives us a spending cap of 3,000 sun. I beat this one first time, but I had to use up every penny we were allowed. This one came down to the wire. In day 27, I pull one of my all-time greatest throws. This level was so tight, and when the mowers are about to go down just after the last wave hit, I was worried that not all the zombies were going to be on the screen. So I panicked and used a time warp, which allowed the zombies to perfectly dodge the lawnmower. This one almost broke me. Day 28, the big one. For those more casual PvZers among you, this level is widely considered the hardest in the game. It's a brutal assault from the most difficult zombies the world has to offer, and you're only allowed to lose 5 plants. That clause is what made this level impossible in the nut challenge, and it's also what caused me to barely attempt this level. I didn't even give this level an hour, which is lame, but come on, look at this mess. But in a weird twist, I later received a message from someone claiming to have beat this level, and they even had video proof. So I went back to this level and stuck it out. Turns out, even with video proof to act as a guide, this level is brutal and took hours upon hours. The main reason being that this is just a huge RNG fest. The biggest obstacle for this level is the lily pads that we start with. They're just sitting ducks. Luckily, if you place an infinite on a lily pad, zombies won't eat the lily pad, even if the nut dies. They just walk past it. So the plan is to fill the screen as fast as possible with lily pads and infinites. This was difficult because even if a single lily pad got eaten, it was game over, we had to restart. Every lane is filled except for these two, and there's two crucial reasons for this. Firstly, these two lanes have fishermen pop up, and these are another huge cause of restart, so by having these lanes almost empty, it takes much longer for the fishermen to pull the nuts off. Secondly, we need at least one lane to full before the other so we have a safe road to put escape routes in. That's the whole strategy actually, it's not too complicated. There's just one small issue. The surfer zombies cannot decide how they interact with infinites. Surfer zombies permanently kill infinites with their surfboards, except for when they don't. But infinites can protect themselves with their plant food, as the barrier blocks surfboards, except for when it doesn't. And if you're really in a pinch, like the final wave where 10 of these guys pops up, we can use a reinforcement to cause every single infinite to enter a state of iframes, which makes them completely invincible to everything in the entire game, except the occasional surfboard. I'm 90% sure this is just a glitch, as these tiny inconsistencies only happen in about 1 in 10 surfers. But there's like 40 of them in this level, so it just always happens. I'd love to pretend I worked really hard to beat this level, but I didn't. I watched 2 seasons of Peep Show back to back, and I barely paid any attention as I just rolled the dice correctly. Day 29 is quite tame in comparison, just a quick plan your defense level. It has a tiny budget, but again, we can just spam spearmints and essentially double it. We aced this one first try. There isn't really any dull moments in this world, so I'm just going to slap the PowerPoint here. For this week's presentation, I'm going to have to urge you to hear me out on this one, because it sounds boring, but I promise this is a really soulful story to me. And I think it's pretty juicy. This is the story behind my favourite flower. My favourite flower is the chrysanthemum. It's not the most common flower, I don't really know anything about it, I don't know where it grows, and I'm not even really a flower person. So why chrysanthemums? Well, it goes back to my high school exams. Most countries have some sort of exam system which largely determines which college or uni you're going to go to. In the UK, our English exam consists of learning 12 poems back to front. Now, I performed very poorly in school. I only found out a couple years ago it was due to undiagnosed ADHD, and I was barely getting past school with passes. But one day in English class, I was given a big leak. The way our English tests worked is it consists of 20 questions in which you compare poems. So for an example, a question will say something like, the poem Charge of the Light Brigade contains themes of ruination in X and Y. Give another example of a poem and how it has themes of ruination. Pretty boring stuff. Now, my English teacher was one of my favourite teachers, and she gave me a massive clue. Oda of Chrysanthemums. Now, Oda of Chrysanthemums is a very boring poem, maybe the most boring poem of all time. I can't even remember what it's about. Off the top of my dome, I think it's about the widowed wife of a coal miner. I'm really not sure. It's 5 times bigger and wordier than any other poem, and it's a slog to read. But here's the bomb. My teacher told me that the paper raters hate this poem and virtually never use it as an example. With that in mind, I cracked down. I studied this poem inside and out. I read it back to front. This was honestly the only time I ever revised in my entire life. I called it the Oda Gambit. If I was going to flunk this test anyway, I might as well give it a shot. If I answer every single question with Oda of Chrysanthemums, then surely I'm just collecting easy marks. As long as they don't ask a question about Oda of Chrysanthemums, it was a surefire hit. And somehow, I fucking aced it. I scored a perfect A star, my only good grade ever. In a sea of C's and D's and F's, I had 1 A star. And that's because I wrote down the answer Oda of Chrysanthemums 20 times. To me, that's when the phrase work smarter, not harder really clicked. And as a cute aside, my girlfriend bought me some Lego chrysanthemums for our last anniversary. This was another level I wrote off as impossible until someone else proved it possible. We need to protect a row of crocodiles that are trying their hardest to kill zombies. Unbelievably, there is an answer to this level, and surprise surprise, it's the sweet potato again, and a lot of solar stages. By clearing out 2 lanes of escape routes, we can make 2 safer lanes for the zombies to filter into. The issue arises here as we can't use gum nuts to hold them down, and even the hurricane can't stop the fishermen from ruining it all. So instead, we spam solar sages. I know it's kind of lame, but it's the only way. This level is even worse than day 28, as it's even more RNG dependent. We heavily rely on the solar sage to double if not triple infect sometimes, and past the first, it's only a 10% chance of infecting another zombie. This level was biblical hell, but we got through it. Day 31, given plants.
Ow, what are you doing?
Day 1 is actually not business as usual for once, as we're already greeted by the world gimmick of modern day. Time rifts is what I assume they're called, I'm not actually sure. This gimmick involves rifts opening once per stage that spawns a bunch of zombies from different worlds. It's not too impactful truthfully, but it is a nice callback to past worlds, I like it a lot. Day 2, we start off with basic time warp span, and man, look at the caliber of zombies here, dude. If this is the amount of trash we have to deal with day 2, we are in for a struggle. Day 3 is the tutorial for the Shrinkadink, and I've never actually considered that this is a usable plant for this challenge, although I'm not sure what it would actually achieve for us. Day 4 starts off as if it's going to be an imp rush stage, which would have been ridiculously cool, but it becomes just a regular rush of good stuff pretty quickly. Still annoyed how late I realized this strategy is kind of unbeatable. I think double sweet potato could have saved us a lot of headaches on past levels. Day 5, and after close to 2 years of using the gum nut almost daily, I just noticed that when you use it, it has this funny little animation where it flies off like a balloon. Am I crazy for not noticing that before? I don't know. The level itself was pretty easy despite the spin kick losers making it annoying. Day 6 brings back the sun tiles and puts them all at the very front of the lawn. We also have to generate 4k sun to beat this level. I filled the front of the lawn with infinites, which was very cool and a great idea, but total overkill. 4k sun is just not that hard to get. We had no way to deal with the wizard zombies here, but they just weren't an issue for some reason. Weirdly, not a factor at all. Day 7 wasn't very noticeable to be honest, except for the fact that due to the weird combination of zombies from different worlds, this stage was really purple. Just like a whole lot of purple here. Day 8 is my favourite gimmick level of the entire game. I don't even like these Bejeweled style games, I just love the upgrade system here, and the added pressure of zombies eating your plant makes for a really fun minigame. My chat was begging me to stop playing because I'm really bad, but if I'm that bad, how come this level was so not even close? Day 9 is a pre-selected plant stage featuring one of my least favourite plants of all time, this thing. Hate this stupid plant. Day 10 brings back power tiles, maybe my favourite world gimmick in the game. Just a shame we end up completely ignoring them as we have access to infinite power tiles for 0 sun cost. What a disturbingly powerful plant. This was the first level of the world that I found and it took me a good hour to beat. This level brings back jetpack zombies, so I moved to spamming tool nuts. They just couldn't hold against these boss rush style waves, though it did make it tantalizingly close. I did eventually remember how jetpack zombies work though. Despite not being able to get hit by the gum nut, they still get stuck behind zombies that are already gummed, so I just used this setup. Worked a charm. Day 11 contains 2 of our arch nemesis, the piano zombie and the football mech. 2 zombies that have caused us a world of pain. I buckled down in preparation for one of our hardest levels yet, but it turns out the piano zombie just doesn't work in this world, and the football mech is way too slow to beat time warps, so it was actually a clean sweep. I brought the EM Peach, finally remembering that it counts as mechs, but I didn't even use it once. Regardless, it goes on the list of used plants in this challenge. Day 12 brings back what, in retrospect, might have been the single biggest issue zombie in this entire challenge, the Chicken Wrangler. And on top of that, we can't lose more than 10 plants. This level was absolutely brutal, but I did get it done after just a couple of hours. We needed to use just 4 gum nuts, 1 primal sunflower, and 4 reinforcements. I do actually believe that if these were weasel wranglers instead of chicken wranglers, this level might have been impossible, as you can release the chickens with gum, but the same isn't true for weasels, and I just don't know how I would have dealt with that instead. Day 13 is more matching. I recently had a long flight and I downloaded Bejeweled, another PopCap classic, and I can confirm that this game stays fun for an entire 5 minutes. I kicked myself the entire flight for not downloading Peggle instead. I need to make a Peggle video. Day 14 is a pre-selected plant level, but day 15 is a banger. It's a level where you need to protect Walnut from imp cannons, which is a really unique challenge, as the imps get fired directly into the center of the walnuts, which is hard for us to deal with. We can just use a sweet potato to move them, but it can be really difficult to even notice that there's an imp there to begin with. The bigger challenge, however, is the newly introduced balloon zombie. Flying zombies have always been a big difficulty in this challenge, but this one is the strongest flying zombie by far. I originally tried Tornut spam like always, but these guys were just too formidable. Instead, we need to use our very last ace plant for this challenge. A plant I didn't even consider until someone pointed it out to me, the cactus. The cactus has the ability to pop these balloons, permanently grounding the zombies, doing so without ever damaging a zombie. With this new trick in our toolbox, I beat this level in under an hour. Day 16 is one of the most fun conveyor belt levels there are. It's like a Gargant boss rush level. This world actually has really fun gimmick levels, and I think that's a large part as to why this world ends up being one of my favourite in the entire game. On day 17, the difficulty of this world really reaches the point where we just can't experiment too much with our setups. We need to lock in with our very best strategies. And for most of them, it'll be the double sweet potato and gumnut spam. On this day specifically, we're dealt with a ton of these arcade zombies that look to be a real problem, as he pushes the arcade machines past the sweet potatoes. I thought this was game over, but the arcade machines just didn't work. This was bizarre to me, as the roller skaters and punk zombies are fixed to work without the music, but this guy was just left out. Oh well, that works for me. Day 18 had one of the most frustrating combination of zombies that was a problem for probably no one else in history but me. And that's because of a super annoying interaction between the balloon zombie, the ball jockey, and the cactus. See, I'm doing the double sweet potato strat again, and it's working perfectly. I save a space behind the sweet potato to put a cactus when they're needed, but on this very last wave, when I need to use the cactus, these stupid balls kick the imps directly onto the cactus, which in the second game for some reason turns it into a spikeweed and the balloons just fly off. I'm sure I could have found a creative way around this, but I just brute forced it, and after like 2 hours, it worked. Day 19 is a very boring conveyor belt level, coming just after I glazed how good they are in this world, of course. Day 20 was an easy double sweet potato sweep, so it's time for our very last PowerPoint of this challenge. These have been my absolute favourite part of this challenge, as it's nice to just talk to you guys about something that isn't Plants vs Zombies for once. And this one's the one I've been waiting months to do. This is every single scrapped PowerPoint and why it was scrapped. I'm not gonna lie, some of these are bad. r/flashlights was going to be the subject of my second video, inspired by this meme that was doing the rounds at the time. The only reason it didn't make it to the video was because it just wasn't very interesting past this one hilarious image. Why predator busting videos are kinda messed up is a topic that's been on my mind for a while. I was obsessed with Chris Hansen's To Catch a Predator for years, it's one of my favourite shows, and it's extremely satisfying to watch an evil person get their comeuppance. But a huge issue of the YouTube copycats is that they often target vulnerable people with disabilities that need help and guidance more than they need cringe B-Tech vigilante justice. This one was actually fully put together and voiced, but I decided that it's just not a hill I'm willing to die on, and I think too many people would have misinterpreted it as me blindly defending predators, which I obviously don't want. The worst running joke in Family Guy was the one that I was the most passionate about. I love Family Guy, I have it playing in the living room 24/7, I've watched like the full show 8+ times. It's just the easiest to consume media ever made, but in the last few seasons they've got so lazy with the jokes that they just have this ear-bleeding announcer that just announces agonizingly unfunny jokes like this.
Bud Light, wow, how did we get here?
They do it in like every other episode now and it drives me bonkers. The reason this one didn't make it was that I was just kind of embarrassed to admit that I love Family Guy so much, it's not a great look for my brand. Why Peep Show is the greatest comedy ever made was a sad PowerPoint. Peep Show is probably my favourite show ever made, only just tied with Smiling Friends, and I'm a strong believer that everyone has to watch Peep Show. And I was going to break down why it's so funny, but in the end, I just had to accept that most of my audience is American, and the American mind just can't comprehend Peep Show. The full show is now available for free on YouTube, so definitely go and watch it, but most of the humour comes from the main characters living miserable lives, which is designed for the British existence of living in a shithole. Apologies to Justin Fletcher, I think was my funniest PowerPoint. It was an apology on behalf of everyone to kids show host Justin Fletcher, who played a character called Mr. Tickle. He has been going strong for like 20 years now, and it's honestly no exaggeration when I say that every household in Britain called this guy a nonce. It was basically just accepted that Mr. Tickle was a Jimmy Savile style sex pest. But parents stuck us in front of the TV to watch him anyway because we didn't have iPads back then. But after a lifetime of working in television, it really does appear that Justin Fletcher is actually like the most unproblematic person to ever appear on the BBC. No scandals, no allegation, no nonsense. This one was cancelled because I just wasn't sure if anyone outside of Britain had ever actually heard of this guy. The last PowerPoint which I was actually saving for this video was the story of how I accidentally leaked the Plant vs Zombies 1 remake early. This one is an incredibly funny story that I wish I could tell you guys, but at the end of the day, the less EA knows the better. It was honestly an accident for the record, and I really didn't leak it to that many people, but EA isn't exactly known for being the most rational company ever. Now I'm not really sure what happened for these next 5 or so levels, but they all look like this. So I've recreated the gameplay, meaning some things won't quite line up, I apologize. Day 21 introduces the All-Star Zombie. It's a real nuisance for the average free-to-play player, but for us gilded gumnut users, this guy is not too bad at all. This level was actually pretty frustrating regardless, as these microphone spinning zombies would destroy our sweet potatoes quite frequently, and it cost us several retries. Day 22 is another one of these belters. A lot of zombies just don't work in this world, like the piano and arcade zombies, and no level exemplifies this better than Day 23, as I just lost it when the snorkel zombie just waddled onto the stage. Who invited this dude? The real challenge of this level was the octo zombie. There's a lot of them. Luckily, we already have a way to deal with this in the Boing setter, and in using this beauty of a plant, it turns out she doesn't only pop all the octopuses, but it also pops all balloons on the screen. This is a baffling and downright unintuitive interaction, but fuck it, we take it. I wish I knew this a couple levels ago though. Day 24 is the mandatory end of world difficulty drop. We're dealing with a malfunctioning piano, a triceratops zombie, and the great zombie. Between them, that's 0 special abilities we need to consider. On top of that, it's a simple 2-waver. This one was easy. Day 25 is the sick carrot level. I accidentally turned off airplane mode for this one, so I had to play an ad, and I'm ashamed to admit I quite enjoyed it. Day 26, I decided to switch it up to the old reliable time warp spam. This was working, but this level ended up having too many zombies, and it just slowed the game down to a crawl. On top of that, there were so many flying zombies that ignored the sap, but once we ran it back with the mighty Tornuts, we beat this level. But it was an absolute clencher. I speedrun Day 27, like legitimately beat it in like 2 minutes. Day 28 is very similar to the octopus level we just had, but this time with the wizard zombie. This time round, the Boing setter doesn't bail us out. On top of that, we need to generate 3k sun, which normally isn't too hard, but with 10 wizards we can't stop from polymorphing everything. We need to get that sun down early before the gaggle of Gandalfs show up. It took a couple of attempts, but we got there eventually. On day 29, I went a bit overkill. On this level, one of the last levels of the entire game mind you, we're dealt the challenge of the Tomb Raiser zombie. So in response, I placed 1000 Boing setters. This level was easy to beat, but it came down to the last second when it came to making sure all zombies were on screen, extremely close. Whilst I still consider day 28 of Big Wave Beach to be the hardest level in the game, many people consider day 30 of Modern to be the true hardest level, and I really do see why. It's a brutal protect the line level with only 3 rows of leeway. Pair that with the fastest zombies in the entire game and we are pretty cooked. For this challenge specifically, the difficulty curve here was weird. It took about an hour to find the perfect loadout for this level. We had to pay for an extra seed slot to have any hope of beating this level. And after all that tinkering, I landed on the primal sunflower for sun obviously, but also the gold bloom. I really didn't want to take this plant as I literally only need to use it once, but the first 2 minutes of this level was brutal without it. The sweet potato and gumnut is our main game plan here, but we don't use the imitators, I just couldn't afford the extra sun slot. And realistically, the gumnut does charge quick enough that we don't need it. The Boing set is here to deal with the massive balloons that the cactus just couldn't deal with, and the solar sage is here to clear out the zombies at the end of the level. Finally, the collie power was here to deal with the gargs. Once I found the perfect loadout, it wasn't that hard to get through the level, but the last wave was just crippling. There were so many gargs that the gum just couldn't consistently hold everything back. Literally the first time in my entire time playing this challenge that was the case. Once the gum failed, we had about a second to react as the balloon zombies moved disturbingly fast about their balloons. There was also a ton of prospector zombies that just made this last wave a nightmare. Despite 90% of this level being a breeze, it took me 4 hours in order to beat this level, as the last wave just went tits up time after time. What a horrible level. Day 31, the very last level of this challenge, and we go out on a banger. While this level is a little bit underbaked, with 3 pool floaties plopped in the middle of the map, these literal once utilized leftovers from Big Wave Beach act almost completely like the ice towers from Frostbite Caves, with the sole exception of them lacking the weird glitch from Frostbite Caves that caused the hurricane to instantly kill stuff. which means we get to utilize the double hurricane. Almost every single plant in this setup allows us to move plants over. The hurricanes, the boing setter, the time warp. Each one of them lets us filter all the zombies into one lane. This was far from the most efficient way to beat this level, but it was extremely fun. And at the end of the day, that's what these challenges are for. In fact, the very last thing to happen in this challenge was a lawnmower setting off a tiny bit too early. And as I thought this level was over, I made an unbelievably clutch garlic plant food, closing out the pacifist run perfectly. We are finally at the end of this nightmare challenge, and thank God. I just want to talk a bit about why I did this challenge in the first place and what comes next. I originally didn't want to do another challenge run, as they're just a bit overdone now, and I don't feel as proud of them as I do my other videos. But as of late, I've been really struggling to manage my ADHD. Specifically, I've been dealing with crippling productivity issues, and that's dragged my upload schedule to a halt. Last November, I was finally diagnosed with ADHD after 3 years of waiting, and I was informed it'd be a further 10 months before I got to start my medication. That was brutal to hear, and I could barely drag myself out of bed for weeks. So I decided to do another long-running challenge series to pad out the coming months. They're just easier to produce than more original videos. But I've been very disappointed by how long this series has taken to make, and I think the quality is noticeably lacking as well. But you guys have stuck around anyway, and I just can't stress how much that means to me. I can't even picture the dire state my life would be in if I didn't have you guys around to motivate me. This channel really saved me. I'm now only a month away from starting medication, which will enable me to fully dedicate myself to these videos, which is my ultimate passion. Once I'm past the rough titration period, which is likely to make things worse before it gets better, I'm aiming to both double the amount of videos uploaded on this channel, and also the quality of the videos. This isn't me overworking myself, which you guys have expressed concern before when I've spoke about this, but this is me being able to finally dedicate myself to my passion. But above all, I will finally be making that damned balloons tower defense video I've been teasing for months. Basically, it's all coming up, Shagro. Thank you all very much for watching. Cheers. Uh-oh, that's the bonus content alarm. It's time to run it back on the impossible levels, but this time following your suggestions. I did actually give these levels a go with max level plants, because I'm borrowing Huey's account and he's a rotten little cheater, but it literally made zero difference. The defensive plants just don't really get any value from leveling them up. Like seriously, you can double the health of a sweet potato, but that does nothing when every third zombie kills it instantly anyway. Day 23 of the Wild West. This is probably the single most impossible level. Even with max level plants, I couldn't even make it to the first wave. It's just an unbeatable combination of challenges for this run. Even when cheating to the max using the boing setter that kills chickens, which I guess actually aren't zombies. The piano zombie still just breaks the strategy apart. This level is impossible. On day 15 of the far future, we face a completely insurmountable obstacle. These citrons that instant kill zombies within the first couple of seconds of the level. But a couple of you giga-brained freaks in my comments suggested one of the most genuinely brilliant ideas I've seen in Plant vs. Zombies. When the citron uses its plant food, its attack charges reset. So if we allow ourselves to cheat a little bit and purchase plant food, then we can use the citron's plant food before the zombies spawn to avoid the first zombies instantly dying. And that is just such a cool idea. Unfortunately, it only really buys us enough time to move a single citron, so this level is still impossible. But that was a crazy good idea. Day 20 of Far Future, we failed to stop the starfruits from killing zombies. You guys suggested using solar sages to buy more time, which kind of worked, but it just didn't stop the starfruits from butchering everything. Again, if you move them to the very back, it still doesn't stop them from damaging the front. Day 14 of Dark Ages gave us the challenge of dealing enough damage to a zombie to produce sun without killing it. And I am elated to say that you guys gave me a winning suggestion here. While there isn't actually a way to deal enough damage, what we can do instead is use a hypno shroom to walk a zombie off the screen, which gives us the full sun amount as if it died. Plus, since we don't actually need to generate that much sun due to the tombstones giving us most of the required amount, we can even achieve this with a single hypno shroom by stacking multiple sunbeams on a single zombie early on, meaning it doesn't go on to eat any other zombie. This level is beaten. Thank you, bye.